starts. Full gas. Into the final 200 metres. The chase has begun. What a sprint, never seen this before. Absolutely fabulous. Opening event of the Hammer Series 2019, and it's today the decision will be made of who will be leading the series after this first event. The team with the fourth rider across the line will be the winners. It's been 2 intense days of racing leading up to this, and to explain how it all works, we've put together a short video.
The Hammer Series. 3 disciplines: climb, sprint and chase, team versus team, no individual ranking. Each team has 7 riders. 5 riders are then picked to race each discipline. All 3 disciplines are raced on short circuit loops. In the Hammer Climb and Hammer Sprint, the first 10 riders to cross the finishing line on each lap will score points for their team. The team with the most points at the end of each discipline wins. The final discipline is the Hammer Chase, a Fox and Hounds team time trial. Teams are split into 2 groups, finalists and runners-up. The groups and the team's starting positions are determined by their rankings after the climb and sprint. The first team in the finalist group whose 4th rider crosses the finishing line wins the event overall.
It is as simple as that, all explained. And I'm joined in commentary by Yossi Bean. I'm Robbie McEwen, and Yossi, 2 intense days of racing under the wheels. It all comes down to this, the chase.
I wonder how much energy these guys have left, because everybody's been telling how incredibly hard the race on Friday, the Hammer Climb, and yesterday's Hammer Sprint have been. And today, a time trial still to go, almost 50 kilometres. That is going to be really, really hard.
Well, they are all arriving at the start in readiness for this Hammer Chase. And it's a team's time trial format, but with a twist, being the chase. The 4th rider across the line from the first team to arrive will be the winner. The team signing on, one of our wildcard teams, Caja Rural. And we've spoken about how intense the racing has been. Let's take a look back at the highlights from yesterday's Hammer Sprint. Well, the crowds were out in force, ready for the Hammer Sprint in downtown Stavanger, based around the harbour. And a bit of a change on last year's course, essentially the same lap, but the finish line put down in the harbour zone, a bit of a trickier finish, a little bit more technical, and as every single race always is in the Hammer Series, it was on from the gun. Sprint number 1 after 5 kilometres was Martinelli against Walscheid. It was almost impossible to separate them. And riders coming through that fast right-hander, well, lesson learned on lap 1. There's a couple that went upside down, but they did get going again. Sprint 2 was Mark Hirschi from Sunweb, and Remco Evenepoel. He was active in the climb. He was also active in the sprint, but it was the man from Bora Hansgrohe who showed that he has brought his fast legs along as well. In lap 3, it was the local man, Edvald Bossenhagen for Dimension Data. He took the 100 points on offer in Sprint 4. The team of Sunweb, those red jerseys, they were ever present at the front. It was Søren Kragh Andersen taking the top points. And
very nice, Lucas, very nice, man.
Double points, and very happy with that was Team CCC. That was Wisniewski. Tom Scully, he hit out early on the next one, trying to grab it, but it was the wily Swiss veteran, Michael Albacini, who took top points. After that, it was that man again, Wisniewski from CCC, along with his fellow Polish rider, Michał Gowasz, and they just rode a 2-man time trial, essentially, sharing the points on laps 8 and 9, not wasting energy sprinting against each other. But when it came down to that final lap, the 200 points on offer at the finish, it was mano a mano, and it was Wisniewski who proved to be the fastest, taking top points. But in the background, right throughout the Hammer Sprint, was the men in blue from De Koning Quickstep, had done enough to win the Hammer Sprint. They took top spot, and it was champagne showers all round. And that decided which teams made our finalist group for the Hammer Chase. And Jumbo-Visma, they topped the table there. Our runners-up group, well, they will be led away by UAE Team Emirates. This group of teams, they cannot win Hammer Stavanger, but on time they could win the chase. But it's down to these 8 teams. One of them will win Hammer Stavanger overall. Team Jumbo-Visma, they have a 30-second advantage on their nearest pursuers of Team Sunweb, and the rest following quickly thereafter. Like a team's time trial, but the first team across the line with their 4th rider intact, they will win Hammer Stavanger.
And that's the most important thing, Robbie, the 4th rider. So if you lose 1 or 2 riders on the way, you're absolutely helpless.
And you'll see what I really love about this format is you can have 2 teams coming in together to the finish, and it goes from being a sort of team's time trial to being a team match sprint to the finish line with your 4th rider, who tends not to be much of a sprinter. So you've got to nurse them. It's tactically really important to get it right, and it comes down to just millimetres. And talking of millimetres, they're a bit taller than that, but not much. The little kids, there's been plenty to do and see. Well, we have an interview with Bistrom from UAE.
Sven, just your quick thoughts on the 2 days so far, because it's been pretty hard talking to other riders as well. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling a bit tired for sure, but it's been 2 intense days, and the hammer climb was really hard as well as yesterday. So now we are here for the hammer chase. Unfortunately, we are in the B final, the runner-up final. So we need to try to win that one to maintain our ninth position.
Yep. And just thinking about, I've read some comments from other riders. One rider, actually, Ryan Mullen, Trek Segafredo, he said that hammer races were the hardest in the world ever.
Yeah, according to also my power data, for example, the hammer climb, I think I had my 2-hour record, so it's pretty intense.
Yeah. What's the plan for today then? I mean, obviously you want to go out and do your best. You're in the runner-up group, but you're first off, so do you have a plan?
Yeah, we need to focus on our race. We try to do as best as possible and not get caught by other teams. So yeah, that's the plan.
You're not going to let us into any of the plan. Just keep going and go.
Yeah.
As fast as you can.
Yeah, as fast as we can.
Tom, the hammer sprint, how are your legs after that?
It's a little bit juicy. It was a tough day out there. Just seemed to be gaps appearing and having to close gaps all day. And then the sprints coming around every time. And then coming up the climb after the sprint was a really fatiguing day.
Yeah, a lot of riders talked about that climb after the sprint, so there was no way of even kind of letting off the gas a little bit there.
No, you fully unload in the sprint, and then you hit straight into the climb, and already you're in the red zone, and then you just have to hang in the red zone for a while. So
yeah, I talked to one team sport director on yesterday, and he said the riders had been looking at their power numbers from the climb. They said they were off the scale. And have you guys been finding that too?
Yeah, I think just not even just the climb, but the whole day was juicy. The drag all the way up to the top hairpin, and then fast all the way back down, and then next thing you know, you're sprinting again. So it's a really solid day out. So it's going to be a little bit interesting to see how things pull up for today.
Yeah, so you've been out and recce'd the course this morning. I saw you guys out there. What do you think of it?
Nice course, nice and flowing. There's going to be times where we can go fast for a long time, and a few corners, but it's going to be a nice team's time trial. You're going to be able to get a good rhythm going, nice flow, and leave it all out there for an hour.
Yeah, so you're third out in the runner-up group, is that right?
That's correct.
You're behind Rival Readiness.
Yeah.
So have you got your eyes on actually overhauling them?
Yeah, we just had a wee meeting in the bus, and we had a bit of a talk about what's going to happen and how we're going to pace it, and we've got a little bit of a tactic on what we're going to play for today. So we'll see whether it's go out hard or wait a bit and see what happens later on.
Absolutely.
Well, Jose, it's been a real theme amongst the riders about how incredibly hard this Hammer Series racing is.
Yeah, people think this is just a game. You know, it's a new format. Some people are a little bit skeptical about it, but this is absolutely full-on racing, 2 hours. So if you compare it, for example, to a cyclocross race, this is 2 cyclocross races in a row. If you look at heart rates, if you look at watts, it's ridiculous, and it's so incredibly hard. And we can repeat that over and over again, but it coming from the riders and it being also proven with the data, it shows how hard Hammer Series are.
Yeah, many riders setting power records. 2 intense days already behind us, and this is day number 3, the Hammer Chase. Let's take a look at the course. It's a 16.3 kilometre lap. It will be covered 3 times. It's mainly flat, very slightly undulating, and probably one of the biggest factors is the wind. It's blowing at about 20 kilometres an hour out of the north. Chilly as well. It's about 12 degrees as a maximum here today in Stavanger, but look at that, long straight lines and very open corners. So not many places where you really need to brake on this course. It's very non-technical through the 10 kilometre mark, and they'll be starting to head back into the wind, and it's towards the end of the lap. This will be absolute headwind along the waterfront here past the beach. Remember last year there, people were out there swimming on a 26-degree day. Maybe not today. The riders will pick up a tailwind at the last straight line in to the finish line. And of course, 3 laps of that 16 kilometre course for a 48 kilometre, almost 49, Hammer Chase. Just beautiful scenery here in Stavanger, and that was the scene of the Hammer Climb on day 1. Team UAE Emirates, they will be first away of the teams in the runners-up group with Sven-Erik Bistrom, Ferrari, Mirza, Manuele Mori and Alexander Ryabushenko. So not making up part of the team today is Alexander Kristoff. He's done his work on the first 2 days.
The Danish team of Rival Readiness with Stavanger local led Christer Hagen, Matthias Norsgaard, Lucas Eriksson, Rasmus Kwade, the guy with the big mustache, and Torkil Veje. Those are the 5 guys in second position in the runners-up group.
Education First will be the next team away, led by Sebastian Langeveld, the Dutch classic specialist. Dan McClay, the sprinter, he'll have to get his time trial on, along with Logan Owen, strongman, the Kiwi, Tom Scully. He said it was pretty juicy yesterday. Well, it's going to be no different today. And again, Julius Vandenberg, he had a crash yesterday, but got up quickly and rejoined. And he'll have other sorts of pain to deal with in the Hammer Chase.
And Trek Segafredo, they're here with their Japanese superstar Fumi Beppu, Koen de Kort, Alex Frame, Alex Kirsch. There's a lot of Alexes going on in the Hammer Series Stavanger this year. And of course, powerhouse from Ireland, Ryan Mullen.
Well, the teams have been warming themselves up. UAE the first away. That was Roberto Ferrari rolling his way in with the locks flowing. I'm not sure if that's really very aero. Maybe break up the wind as it comes off the helmet, and I don't know if it's really an aero advantage though.
Well, it's very good hair, Bobby. It's good hair, and he just wants to show it off.
The Italian riders, obviously more about the looks. This is the Rival Readiness team, one of our wild card entries, one of the pro continental level teams. Team UAE, I spotted them out on the circuit this morning doing a recon. I was out having a ride and they came past and nearly blew me off the road. Such was the speed difference. But they were having a really good look at the circuit.
It was such a shame yesterday due to the nature of the course with that climb straight after the sprint. Peloton broke, and their big guy Alexander Kristoff was in the second group, in the second peloton, so they just couldn't sprint for the points yesterday in the Hammer Sprint, and that has cost them a place amongst the finalists today.
Well, I'm sure they're motivated for this Hammer Chase because they are being chased by one of the lower ranked teams, one of the wildcard teams in Rival. So UAE, I'm sure they would really not want to get caught by essentially what is a Division 2 team. So there's a bit of honour at stake here. They'd also like to preserve their 9th place, as we heard Sven-Erik Bistrom say in the interview just before. So they've missed out on the finalist group, but they certainly would like to lead home the runners-up group.
These are the time differences that the teams have to battle today. And everything's possible, especially amongst the top teams in this runner-up group. They're ready to roll. They're lined up at the finish line and start line, of course.
And let's not forget that all these teams in the runners-up group are eligible to win the hammer chase. It is timed like a team's time trial, but of course only the finalist group can win Hammer Stavanger, the overall prize. But there's the day prize, of course.
And they're off.
They've rolled away in front of us, Team UAE. So they are quickly into their order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. And of course they must finish with 4. It's the 4th rider across the line that counts.
And it's a very dynamic start, Robbie, because some of these time differences are as little as 20 seconds. So they have to go as fast as they can to the start line here, line up here, and scoot off.
30 seconds, the gap between the first two teams. Rival Readiness are away, and Education First roll their way up to the line behind them, and they will be a further 28 seconds behind Rival. And those time gaps get smaller and smaller as we go down the order. So do expect to see some catches made.
Well, all the teams are already lined up here because, well, 20 seconds, that's not a lot to get ready here. The guys in pink and purple, they are off Education First, and they have a big chance to overtake Rival, probably already in the first lap of 3.
They do, and you've almost got to make a decision how you want to ride this hammer chase. If you want to try and set the fastest time to win the hammer chase across all 16 teams, maybe you need to ride tempo, a very smooth pace. But if you're just intent on catching teams, then going out very hard and making a catch early and then pacing yourself off them, that's also an option, just to move up in the order in the rankings. But
if you see somebody riding in front of you, sometimes your instinct is just to want to catch them and not just maintain your pace as it is. You just want to overtake the guys in front of you. They are starting fast and furious now at the moment. The 6th team in the runners-up group are the French team of Delco Marseille. Such a glorious kit this is, bright blue and white. And Trek Segafredo and Caja Rural, those are the last 3 teams. They are already ready because the start intervals is only 20 seconds.
Well, as I said, those gaps getting smaller and smaller. Trek Segafredo, the second last team to go off from the runners-up group. So out of these 8 teams, they were the 7th one. They'll be followed up by Caja Rural. I'm sure Trek Segafredo are looking to redeem themselves after what their team director, Gregory Rust, said himself was subpar.
Yeah,
they weren't happy with how it's gone.
They can't be happy. They're a big World Tour team, and they're second to last here before the hammer chase. But they have got some room to move up in this runners-up group. All the teams are out on the road. 5 rider teams, 8 of them, and let the chase be. Ooh, this is already a problem for the Danish team of Rival Readiness. They are losing one of their guys. What happened there?
Here we see what the problem is. Well, looks like his chain has come off, and he's trying to pick it out from in between, lay it back on, and that's exactly what has happened. Completely blocked, trying to just gently pedal backwards and then go forwards again, but he just can't get it organised. Nearly pulling the derailleur all the way through and off.
This
is a delicate operation.
Don't try this at home, dear people. This is very dangerous. It was the Danish rider Mathias Norsgaard Jørgensen. His sister is also part of the pro peloton in Bigler. So it's a cycling family, the Norsgaard family.
Well, that has cost Rival Readiness a whole chunk of time. That will have seen Team UAE Emirates go further and further in front and out of sight. And the gap will have narrowed right down between Rival and the team behind them, Education First. There are the time splits at the top at the moment. So Education First 19 seconds behind Rival now, so they've not quite halved the gap, but they're getting closer and closer.
Nice smooth pedaling here by Roberto Ferrari, one of the best names in cycling if you're doing a speed-based sport, of course. Maybe you should go into another fast sport after his cycling career. He's one of those those sprinters who can do a good lead out. He can sprint for himself in a smaller group, and now he has to drive the pace in this group.
Well, here is the Rival Readiness cycling team from Denmark, so they're back into their rhythm. And that was the rider who dropped his chain, Mathias Norsgaard.
Big guy, by the way, 114. Very tall rider, the Danish guy. And then now nicely information. What's the most important thing, Robbie, about a team time trial? You coming from Australia, it's tradition there.
Well, as they say, smooth is fast, and in an event like this, particularly in this hammer chase, you're only as strong as your 4th strongest rider. You do have real-time trial specialists within teams. Some guys are better at it than others. They need to take a bit more of the weight of doing the turns on the front. But it's not that they need to go through and go faster and pick up the pace. The guys who are struggling a little bit more, they need to go through and off, make sure they hold the pace, don't slow it down, and then get out the way basically and get back in the wheel. Let the stronger guys do longer turns. So not that they're coming through faster, just going same pace, just longer.
If you look at, for example, a guy like Tony Martin, he usually does like a minute pull, while other guys might do 15 seconds or 30 seconds. But the most difficult thing, Robbie, is getting back in that position. You can already see that the 5th guy from the Israel Cycling Academy is struggling a little bit, because that 5th position is, or that last position in this case, is the most difficult one.
Well, you've really got to know yourself and feel it coming on. You can do a turn at the front, but you've got to get yourself off in time that you don't go into the red zone and start to blow yourself up. And if you go too deep into the red while you're on the front, then swing off, you may have huge trouble getting back in last position and actually catching that slipstream and staying with your team. You find yourself a few lengths off the back at these speeds, and they'll be doing around 60 kilometres an hour right now. Then you've got to close 1 or 2 lengths. It could be extremely uncomfortable, and your team's time trial, or your hammer chase in this case, is going to be very short. This is Education First, about to ride their way into the tunnel, and you can see they have really closed in on Rival Readiness, just 15 seconds behind them now.
Well, of course, they will be eager to catch the team in front of them. And especially if you look at the 2nd tier teams, almost 50k time trial or 50k team time trial is not something that they would have done often in the races that they normally ride. So this is an effort. Well, even the World Tour teams, they don't often do a 50k time trial. Look at the Tour de France this year, it's not even 30k.
Yeah, quite often in the Grand Tours, the team's time trials are 30 and under. And a 48 kilometre time trial like this is quite long. And considering there's only 5 riders per team riding it here, it makes it effectively even longer. You're on the front more, you've got less riders to go and sit on, and so you've got less time in the wheel before you're required to put down the power on the front again. So it is an extremely difficult discipline, and if you're on a bad day, there's no worse place to be than being 4th man and being required to stay on there. And quite often you'll see some riders then they say, well, then you're better off to swing out and call other riders in front of you, miss a few turns, try and get the heart rate down, instead of just keep on going through, not wanting to miss a turn, then completely blowing up and getting dropped.
And then they have to wait for you, which is not ideal. Only 12 seconds now between Rival in 2nd position and Education First in 3rd position. So we might even see our first catch being made in the first lap of 3. Of course, there are very strict rules, Robbie, for drafting.
Yes, very strict rules here in the hammer chase, and the commissaires out on course. They keep a very close eye that teams aren't drafting off each other, and if you are being passed, you'll be shown a flag, which means you must stay out to the side. You may not come into the slipstream of the team that's passing you, and then you must hold a 20-metre gap and not ride back into the wheel. And if you are warned for that, it's one warning. You get warned again, well, it's a penalty straight away. And then the second infraction, then you are disqualified.
Well, we can see that between the team in 3rd and the team in 4th place, in this case Israel Cycling Academy and Dimension Data, the catch is imminent as well. So we're off to a very exciting start of this hammer chase, because this is exactly what we want to see.
And look at those power stats from Bistrom from UAE Team Emirates. An average speed so far of 52.8 kilometres an hour. Average power 385 watts, and that's 640 watts, quite possibly off the start line, getting up to speed 640, or on a little pinch like this as they change roads and up one of those little ramps. But that average, that tells it all. 385 watts, and a lot of it, 1/5 of it, is sitting in the wheel, and still with an average power of that. And here
we go.
Our first catch.
Here we go. This is the fun part about the hammer chase. Well, they are not equally matched in the rival readiness team at all.
No,
there's
really
2
fallen
riders
apart
there, and there's no communication at all. And this is what happens when there's no communication happening between the teammates. And like I said, they're a smaller team. They're not racing a lot of big events, so they might not have that much experience with racing a team time trial at all.
This is a bad sign for rival readiness on lap 1, only 9 kilometres into the race, and they've already fallen apart. 2 in front, then 3, and they're now about to be passed by Education First, the men in purple and pink. And here is our first catch. I think our second catch won't be far away either. Team Dimension Data closing in on Israel Cycling Academy. They're just 6 seconds behind. So with those starting gaps that we saw, we did say that the catches would come thick and fast around this course. They're now back together, Rival Readiness.
And if we look at the difference between Team Emirates and Education First, Education First have made up about 13 seconds already of their 58-second lead, or in this case, a gap.
Well, the catch has been made and the pass has been affected by Education First, and they will just roll their way away from Rival Readiness. In a time trial, whether it be an individual or a team's time trial, you quite often see riders who get caught. They will then manage to hang in there and maintain the gap of the rider or team that has just passed them. And very, very tempting to ride back into the slipstream.
Next catch is being made already between the South African team of Dimension Data, or Africa's team as it's called, and the Israel Cycling Academy. 2 teams actually quite closely linked to a charity, and in the case of Israel Cycling Academy to Israel. And they are one of those teams, Robbie. They have 30 guys on their roster. They're the biggest team in pro cycling. And they do that because they are riding at the moment 3 different events. They're riding the Tour of Estonia, they're riding the Hammer Series, and of course they're riding the Giro. And the plan of the Israel Cycling Academy is to get as many points as they can to finish first or second in the Pro Continental category, because that will enable them to ride the 3 Grand Tours, the Big 5 Classics next year. So that's why they're sending 3 teams up the road across the world to get points.
Well, you just see there the close eye that the commissaires are keeping on proceedings here, and he's just waving one of the motorbikes out from in between the groups, not to provide any slipstream to the team who has just been caught and passed by Education First, that being the Danish team of Rival Readiness. Here they are, and that is the gap. And you can see the commissaire on the left just looking back, checking the gap, seeing where they're riding. It's not that they're really picking up much slipstream where they are, but it just gives them that incentive that they can see the pace being set, they can gauge it off the team in front. Any corners coming up, they can also see how they take it, how much they're braking, and how they're able to take the next corner. But I do expect to see that gap open further and further.
Well, we can see that Trek Segafredo have already caught their first team in front of them. That was Delco Marseille at the first intermediate point. They have, so we've already seen 3 teams being overtaken, but Trek Segafredo is now in 6th position, and they are now chasing down Team Dimension Data, or the Cycling Academy in this case. Trek Segafredo, they have to make up about 42 seconds on the team in front of them.
Well, I know after speaking to Gregory Rust, the team director of Trek Segafredo, after the first 2 days, the Hammer Climb and the Hammer Sprint, that he was intent on getting a decent result for the team in this Hammer Chase. And this is a good dress rehearsal as a team's time trial. It's a good opportunity to ride another team's time trial event, and they have a pretty good pedigree in these events. Trek Segafredo, so you'll be expecting a good ride out of them. And the expectation was from Gregory Rush that they should catch all of those second division wildcard teams that are in this group. And after that, see what sort of day they're on and if they can mow down some of the other World Tour teams as well.
Lovely shot here. We're going towards the, we're riding across the Havasfjord, and we'll see the three big swords along the waterline, commemorating how Norway became one kingdom in 800, I think 872, if I remember correctly. Three big swords in the rocks from the Havasfjord. And well, we can also see that Team Education First, Robbie, are now only 30 seconds behind UE Emirates, and they started 58 seconds down on the team from Emirates. So they are doing a pretty good job.
They're doing a very good job, but it is, again, very early on in this hammer chase. They're 3 kilometres now from the end of lap 1. So a 16.3 kilometre lap, which has to be covered 3 times as they come along past the beaches. And this is that spot you just mentioned.
There they are. Nice little helicopter shot from there. I think it's a really beautiful monument from the swords in the rock. And well, Norway was made up of many kingdoms. Everybody had their own little part of the country, and then after the Battle of Havasfjord, everything came together under the rule of one king, and that was actually the start of the Norwegian kingdom, and it's still a kingdom to this day. I really love this. It's very beautiful. But back to the bike racing. 27 seconds. Education First are going like a rocket.
Yep, they are really closing down that gap on UAE Team Emirates. Just 28 seconds between them. It's 3 seconds back further to Rival. They have been caught and passed by Education First. And Team Dimension Data, well, they are also only about 40 seconds behind Rival. So they will have them in their sights on some of the longer, straighter sections. I think that is Dimension Data from this heli shot. The black, the green.
Yeah, they are.
Easy to be seen. And that is Team Dimension Data, presented by Quebeca. In fact, you must say Quebeca.
Oh, you can do.
I've just been in South Africa recently, and I was actually privileged enough to be part of a ceremony where they hand over the bikes to school kids. So these kids, they need to earn their bikes with their school marks, and you know, providing bikes to the community in Africa, it makes them so much more productive. People are walking hours and hours and hours for school or for work, and if they can be provided a bike through the Quebeca program,
I'm not going to repeat that.
Then you know, it makes them much more productive. It saves them so much time, and it's a fantastic initiative.
Yeah, one of my friends is part of this team, Italian rider Gasparotto, and he was actually very much impressed by the charity that is connected to the team. And most of the riders on the team, they really feel the charity and they feel the connection with the African people. Even if they're not from Africa themselves, they are very passionate about the goal, about the charity that's connected to the team, and especially that handover ceremony, like you said. It's a very touching thing.
Certainly was, and we're back with UAE Team Emirates still in front. That gap holding steady at the moment, 28 seconds. Education First, they've really eaten into the deficit they had from the start, and now it's starting to stabilise just a little bit, and we'll get an idea after a couple of laps if some teams have got a little bit too excited too soon, started a little bit too hard. You'll see them, you know, close down the gap and then start to fade backwards again. So you've really got to go out with a plan. This is the speed difference at the moment, although we do know they're on different parts of the course. One could be going up slightly, one could be going down slightly. So about 5 kilometres now difference at the moment, but UAE Emirates are just about to cross the finish line for the first time. They will come through and get 2 laps to go. That is lap 1 of 3 complete for UAE Team Emirates, the team of Alexander Kristoff, who is not riding today. He rode the hammer climb and the hammer sprint. It's up to the rest to hold the honour high for UAE and see if they can lead home this group of runners-up. So these are the 8 teams out on the road at the moment who did not make the finalists group. They are racing for places 9th to 16th in the Hammer Stavanger. But of course, they can win the Hammer Chase with the time that they set when their 4th rider crosses the line. So they're eligible for the day prize, but they can't win the overall from the 3 days of racing in the Hammer Stavanger.
The gap between Education First and Rival is still very small. The team car from Education First is not allowed to follow the team just yet. They have to stay behind Rival team. And this is, of course, the mentioned data coming into the finish straight. They have overtaken the Israel Cycling Academy, and those gaps are stable. It will be interesting to see how Trek Segafredo are doing. They have already overtaken Delco Marseille, and of course we'll have some new timings on the finish line. We'll have a timing point halfway into the lap and on the finish line. And if you're sitting here in the commentary box on the finish line, it's just amazing to see how fast a team time trial is.
And what I can also see is the people of Stavanger are starting to come out in force. Quite nice weather out there today, a little bit chilly at 12 degrees.
There they are already.
They're staking their spots along the grass embankments on the overpass bridge on the finish straight here, and watching the teams come through and do their thing as they race up the finish straight at 50+ kilometres an hour. We saw the average speed of Education First early on after 9 kilometres, an average of around 53 kilometres an hour.
Well, Trek Segafredo, they have overtaken Delco Marseille quite early on in the race, but you can see that the gap between them and the team in front of them, the Israel Cycling Academy, is still really big. It's over a minute, so that's going to be one tough ask of the American-based team.
They do have a massive gap still to close down, 75 metres out for Trek Segafredo. So the time check coming up to see how much more work they have got to do in 2 laps to go. 2 minutes and 14 down on UAE Team Emirates. So they haven't really managed to close anything down. In fact, I think they may have lost a little bit of time. Interesting to note, Team Rival Redinets, they had that problem early. One of the riders dropped his chain. It cost them a whole heap of time. So they got caught by Education First. But since then, they've managed to stay in contact with Education First. So Rival Redinets, they've really started to get into the rhythm and able to pace themselves off Education First without sitting in the slipstream, as we know is really not allowed. Penalties apply for any team who rides too close and picks up the slipstream of the team in front. But these are our leaders, UAE Team Emirates.
Only one team left to cross the finish line, and that is the Spanish team of Caja Rural. They are way, way behind. We can't even see them here.
Have a look here. The rider in 3rd position, he is on a normal road bike. No aero handlebars, no time trial bike.
Remarkable.
That is a massive disadvantage. He started on his road bike. I noticed them ride off, and he was on the road bike then. So
why would that be?
They didn't bring him a time trial bike, or they don't have one for him, or maybe there was a mechanical problem right before the start. I don't know. But in any case, riding a road bike with everybody else on a time trial bike, it is quite
torture.
Unbelievable at this level, and well, it's a testament to the rider himself that he's still able to be there and still able to do a turn.
Wow.
And it was actually rider number 153, Sergei Chernetsky, the man who crashed. So possibly from his crash on the Hammer Climb,
he can't sit on a time trial bike.
It's possible he can't ride the time trial bike. He's too stiff, or he's got skin off in all the wrong places, preventing him possibly from riding a time trial bike. So that's the only explanation I can think of that why he wouldn't be on it.
I think that's a real good hypothesis, because a time trial position, Robbie, you can explain that better than I can as a former pro. What are the most difficult points when it comes to your body? Where does it hurt the most to be in this position for, in this case, almost an hour?
Where it really starts to hurt, particularly riders who don't do a lot of training on a time trial bike, because you're in a different position. You can see them, they lean forward. It's a completely more compact position than the road bike. You don't have the opportunity to change position as well, because you're staying aero the whole time. It tends to get quite uncomfortable and painful in your lower back, through the gluteus muscles, through your backside. The hamstrings also start to scream. So it's quite an uncomfortable position, but of course it is the most efficient and fastest. You wouldn't want to try and do it all day long.
And if you have got the world-class time trialists like Tom Dumoulin, for example, or Rowan Dennis, how many hours a week would they be on a time trial bike, ideally?
guys like that would be riding their time trial bike 2-3 times a week. A lot of the good time trialists will do one long ride on the time trial bike, so 4 hours on a time trial bike, staying in that position, training the muscles to be in that position and be able to work at full capacity while they're in that aerodynamic position on the bike. And then on the other days, they'll be going out and doing efforts, more high intensity stuff, and working on that aspect of time trialing. But there's only one way to get better at it and more comfortable with it, and that's to ride the time trial bike.
Well, we can see that the gap between Team Emirates and Education First is now down to 17 seconds. It stabilized more or less on half a minute for a while during that first lap, but they are now closing in on the team from Emirates, and we might see a new catch happening in this second of 3 laps in the Hammer Chase here in Stavanger. The weather is pretty nice here. As Robbie explained, it's not that warm, it's about 12-13 degrees, but it is the warmest day of the weekend so far.
The warmest
well, it's the bright side of it.
12 degrees, but it is a nice day outside, and it's absolutely ideal for an intense effort like this one. Nice and cool. The riders certainly aren't going to overheat. But the heat that UAE Team Emirates will feel is the approach of Education First. And it's a real credit to the Rival team here, the Danish team. They were caught early by Education First after that mechanical mishap of the rider who's on the front of the team at the moment, number 114, dropping his chain. But they have stuck with them. They have not lost anything really since the pass. So they are on track to actually catch UAE Team Emirates, who we thought, you know, it's a matter of honour as a World Tour team. They'd really like to be able to hold off the Division 2 team, the wildcard team of Rival Readiness. But the way it's looking at the moment, if Rival can keep tracking Education First, pacing off them, they will also catch UAE Team Emirates.
And is it a possibility that Rival Readiness are going to re-overtake Education First? Is that allowed?
That is a real possibility. It is allowed, but if you're going to do it, you have to make the pass. What we've seen in the past in this Hammer Chase is a team in the position now of Rival. They'll just pace themselves off the team in front. They won't sit in the slipstream, but they'll just use them as a guide, and right near the end, they'll start to ride it like a sprint. They'll take a run at them. And of course, as you're approaching the team in front, you can run into the slipstream and then make the pass and do it like a sprint and drag your fourth man across the line. So it's quite a different way of finishing a team's time trial. It's not just going smooth and steady at a high pace all the way through the line and waiting for the clock to stop. It's real team against team racing. So it's a team's time trial with a twist, the Hammer Chase.
Such a beautiful view on the city of Stavanger here. It's the 4th city of Norway, and if you count the community of Sandnes with it, it's a 3rd metropolitan region of the country. And well, there's a lot of water, of course, here on the fjords, and it makes for some stunning scenery, I should say.
It does, and they also pride themselves on being a real cycling city. And
oh,
well,
yeah.
You'll know, you've been on the bike as I have.
Incredible.
The network of bike paths, and you being from the Netherlands, the country that's along with Denmark, or more specifically Copenhagen, considered to be the best bike path countries in the world. Norway is right up there. At least Stavanger is.
I was absolutely impressed. And also the behavior from the motorists is fantastic. They're polite. They take enough space to get around you if you're on the bike, and especially the network of bike paths. You can see it here on the side of the road. It's separate from the main road. Well, this is integrated in the main road, but many of the bike paths are separated from the main road. Great asphalt, fantastically maintained. Absolute credit to the city of Stavanger. And it's one of their it's important to them as well to be a cycling-friendly city, to get people out of the car onto the bike, because of course of the climate. This is an oil town. The town grew so big because of the oil industry, but it's very important to them to also move towards a more sustainable future and get people out of the car onto the bike. And you do that by creating an infrastructure that is friendly to the bike, as they do here in Stavanger. But look at those differences, Robbie. 5 seconds now.
So Education First really closing in now on UAE Team Emirates. Rival Readiness, they're just seeing the gap between themselves and Education First opening up a little bit more now. They've been able to track them for almost an entire lap now. But that gap just starting to open up a little bit more as Education First. They are lining up UAE Team Emirates, and they're about to make the pass. This, of course, the race for positions 9th through 16th. This is the group of runner-up teams. So the results from the hammer climb and the hammer sprint, they are put together, and then the teams seeded, and the teams 9th to 16th, they are racing right now.
Oh.
Our first 8 teams, they will battle it out for the honour of being Hammer Stavanger champions for 2019.
Well, Robbie, I absolutely love this, how this is playing out. Then teams are catching each other, and the battle that is going on there at the front of this runners-up group. And of course, if Education First score a great time, they might even win the hammer chase, like you explained before. But we'll have to wait until the last team to arrive today in the finalist group to see what the time of Education First will get them on the final scoreboard of the hammer chase. Well, the chase is on and the catch has been made, and of course Team Emirates know that they have to well, give them a 20-meter gap.
Yep, they'll have to make sure they, at the moment, just go out to the side. But of course, when you're on a section like this with all these corners, you can't just go out to the side and not be in the wheel. So you follow the slipstream through the corner, but after that they do have to make sure they get out of that slipstream, and now they're on the other side of the road. Education First just almost losing someone there through the corner. It was big Tom Scully, the Kiwi, who dragged them through, and here is another pass. So Rival Readiness making the pass on UAE Team Emirates. So it was Emirates who started first in this runners-up group, and despite having that mechanical problem for this rider at the back, number 114, they've got themselves going again. They've also made the pass on Team UAE, and they are still tracking Education First. They look like they were starting to drop off. They've managed to just close that gap a little bit again, and they've got that real incentive of being able to see them right in front of them the whole time.
What a glorious sight this is. This is what Hammer Chase is all about. 3 teams chasing each other. And I don't think it's that unthinkable that the Danish team, the smaller team, is going to overtake Education First yet again. They were overtaken halfway into the first lap, but they are really, really riding fast at the moment. A real credit to the second-tier team from Denmark. And they are riding here with Christer Hagen. He's a guy from the Stavanger region. They're riding here with Mathias Norsgaard, with Lukas Eriksson, the Swedish national road champion. And it is going to happen, Robbie, with the last names Rasmus Kvade and Torkil Veje. And it's going to happen again. They are trying to overtake Education First. What an exciting scenario here in the hammer chase today.
Well, they were really trying to make a run then to make the pass. We look how narrow this section of road is. And as one of the Education riders swung off from the front to go to the back of his group, it effectively blocked the Rival team from getting past. And at the moment, they are sitting right in the wheel. They need to be very, very careful now. And they're making the pass. They've gone out to the right. The commissaire will be taking a close look at this. He's just out of shot behind. They pulled out to the right-hand side, and they are now making the pass.
This is absolutely remarkable that this Rival Readiness team are now overtaking Education First. Maybe they bit off a bit too much that they can chew, and they will collapse later on in the race. We're about halfway, just past the halfway point, but this is absolutely impressive from the Danish Rival team.
Oh, it really is intriguing. Education First making a fast, strong start, catching Rival after that mechanical incident. Both of them catching and passing UAE Team Emirates, but Rival have really started to hit their straps. They've found their rhythm, and whether or not they're getting overexcited at the moment, they've been hanging off the back of Education First and about 50, 60 metres behind them throughout a whole lap. And now it's almost like they've made an attack over the top. And this is coming towards now the end of lap 2 with 1 lap remaining of 16.3 kilometres.
Well,
so the question is, can they maintain this rage and prevent Education First from repassing?
Well, Rasmus Kvade, one of the guys on this team, he is part of the Danish team pursuit on the track, so he knows how to ride it. I think Jørgensen is one of the spare riders for the for the Danish team pursuit, and they have a very strong team with Julius Johansson, for example, Niklas Larsen, very strong team on the track from Denmark in the team pursuit. Rasmus Kwade with his iconic moustache, though I think he doesn't have the moustache anymore, but we can't see it, of course, from here. He's a very, very impressive rider, but Education First, they are not giving up.
Well, plenty of locals getting their couple of minutes of fame, and there's the whole brass band out at the Three Swords. We don't have a microphone down there, so make up your own tune in your head to go along with that picture.
The 5 guys here from Education First: Sebastian Langeveld, Dan McClade, Logan Owen, Tom Scully and Julius van den Berg, the Dutch neo-pro, who went down pretty hard. He overcooked that corner in the hammer sprint yesterday. It looked like he didn't do a proper recon because, well, he just overcooked it.
Yeah, came in very fast, a little bit off camber, right-hand corner, and just the back wheel slipped out from underneath him and ripped the nicks open, so a bit of skin off the buttocks for the Education First rider, but he jumped up quickly, rejoined the bunch and managed to finish. Now, look at the setup here. We've seen UAE Team Emirates caught by both the teams in front of them, but now they are managing just to stay in touch. So all 3 teams, they're keeping the necessary space between each other that they won't be penalised for drafting. But I just also wonder if maybe UAE Team Emirates have thought, well, we're going out in front, so maybe we use that 30-second gap, we just ride a little bit easier. The others will come and catch us if they ride hard. Then we just try and hang in over the last lap and a half, then make a comeback and out-sprint them at the finish. So it's not your normal team's time trial, the hammer chase. It's all about getting your 4th rider across the line. And in the end, it becomes a team sprint competition, a match race all the way to the finish line.
This is so much fun to watch. If we look a little bit further on in the field, quite earlier on in this hammer chase, Israel Cycling Academy was being overtaken by Dimension Data, but Israel Cycling Academy are still only 9 seconds behind Dimension Data, and Trek Segafredo went off to a flying start, overtaking Delco Marseille Provence, but they still have that minute gap on the team in front of them, which is the Israel Cycling Academy. So you said Gregory Rust's goal, yeah, this is a flag to warn them not to draft, that the gap between the 2 teams is not big enough. And you can see some stats here on the screen from the local boy Christer Hagen, and Max Watts there, 910.
Well, one of those accelerations out of a corner up one of those little steep ramps, quite possibly just off the start line, getting wound up to speed. They are now in a tailwind section. This is a drag uphill, this last long straight through to the finish line. So that you wouldn't even call it a false flat. It is a hill up to this point, then it flattens out as they come into the final 600 or 700 metres, where they find themselves right now at Rival Readiness. And in this tailwind, they'll be winding things up to some 55 kilometres an hour. And there's the gap between Rival and Education First. And then we just saw that yellow flag warning to UAE Team Emirates to keep the gap between themselves and Education First. Do not get a drafting penalty. So they just have to try and gauge their effort off the teams in front, see if they can keep that gap as it is at the moment, and then try and close it right down in the final part of this hammer chase. And as we said, as they're about to get the bell for the final lap, that is 2 laps done out of 3. And that is 3 teams through the finish line. And as we explained earlier on, these teams, they are racing for positions 9th through 16th in the Hammer Stavanger. Although if they set the fastest time, they can win the hammer chase, the day prize. But the overall for the entire Hammer Stavanger, that will be battled out between the top 8 teams who made the final group.
Dimension Data started the day in 5th place, 1 minute and 46 seconds down on Team Emirates, and they have made up quite some time already, 45 seconds on their deficit from the start. So they're on a roll, but is it enough in the last lap to make up 40 seconds? Let's see what the actual time gap is at the moment between the teams. Well, they are closing in. It's 47 seconds between them and Team Emirates, but that seems to be difficult. But Team Dimension Data have got a good rhythm in their time trial, making up time on the top teams, but it seems like a big ask to do 57 seconds on Rival and Education First in the last lap.
That is a huge ask to bring back that sort of gap in the space of 16.3 kilometres. At the moment, it's the Danish Division 2 wildcard team, Rival Readiness, who are leading the way, just 5 seconds ahead of Education First. Now, Israel Cycling Academy also passed through the finish line 1 minute and 37 seconds down. And coming in fairly closely behind now, Trek Segafredo. They have been making up time. Not as much as we thought they might have initially when they took off. So they'll be coming through in what will make them 14th. Of course, there's 8 other teams still to start their hammer chase a little bit later this afternoon. There's a bit of a gap between the two groups. And we'll see the first team go out, which will be Jumbo-Visma. They are the top of the table after the hammer climb and hammer sprint.
Well, I'm very curious to see what will happen in the finalist group, because there's 3 teams there. Jumbo-Visma in first, Team Sunweb in second, and Mitchelton Scott in third, and even the Koning Quickstep in fourth. They're quite evenly matched, and it's such a long time trial, 49 kilometers, so still everything can happen for the teams in the finalist group, and still I think 4 teams can actually win the Hammer Stavanger.
I agree with you, and there are 4 teams that have a very good team's time trial pedigree as well.
Some world champions there.
The Koning Quickstep multiple world champions in that discipline. This is a little bit different, just 5 riders, and the way you have to finish it, it's not just the clock that decides. You are racing team against team all the way to the finish line. So the team that crosses the finish line first with their 4th rider, they will be crowned the Hammer Stavanger champions. These teams here in this group, they can win the hammer chase on time. They are fighting it out for positions 9th to 16th. And we are waiting for just one more team to come through the finish line to finish lap 2. That is Caja Rural, one of those riders on a normal road bike, not on the time trial machine. So there's a huge disadvantage, not only for that rider, Chernetsky, but also for his team.
Well, still all the teams are 5 riders strong. Nobody's been thrown overboard just yet. But of course, this is the final lap where everything is down. The hammer is down, actually.
Well, at the moment, it's Rival Readiness, this team on screen. They are the ones who have dropped the hammer early on in this hammer chase. They dropped the chain. Got it back on and got going again, but now Education First are making another run at them. So early in the race, it was Education First closed down very, very quickly on the Rival Readiness after that mechanical mishap. An entire lap that Rival stayed in touch, just kept their eye on the prize, paced themselves off that of Education First, overtook them again, and now we've seen another leapfrog. Education First back in front.
And this might be the difference between being a World Tour team and a Pro Continental team. We're over the 30-kilometer mark. The time trial is starting to weigh in terms of the distance, in terms of the past 2 days of racing. And then, of course, a smaller team, with all due respect, like the Rival Readiness team, who have only stepped up to the Pro Continental level this year, they might have more trouble than a World Tour team like Education First, with so many big guys like Langeveld and Scully on the team.
Well, in this hammer chase, not all laps are created equal. That final lap, the last of the 3, it is just so much harder. The intensity of the race, as you just said, from the first 2 days, really started to get into the riders' legs. And there is a flag for Rival Readiness, the yellow flag. So just reminding them, you must keep at least a 50-metre gap between yourselves and the team in front, or you must try and pass. But do not come closer than that if you're not going to make a pass, or at least get on the other side of the road that you're not picking up the slipstream.
Well, Caja Rural just passed the finish line, and we saw that the unfortunate Sergei Chernetsky was struggling now in 5th position on his road bike, and he was losing speed, or his teammates were going too fast for him, as a matter of fact. So he was about to be dropped from the Caja Rural team, who are in 8th and last position in both this runners-up group and in the hammer chase, in the hammer Stavanger.
Well, here is a comparison between Krista Hagen of Rival team and that of Sebastian Langeveld from Education First. Langeveld, an average of 330 watts to that of 360 from Hagen. Average speed, Rival just that tiny bit higher. Well, they came back at Education First and passed in that last lap. Sebastian Langeveld, a little bit more economical, 30 watts less average, a much lower, almost 300 watts lower of peak power.
Now they're losing fast, the Rival Readiness team, which means that our camera bike can pass them and their team car will also pass them pretty soon. I think this is it. I don't think the Rival Readiness guys have something left to try that again, to try and overtake Education First again. And they have to be afraid as well of the Emirates team, because the Emirates team is only 5 seconds behind them.
This is Sebastian Langeveld at the back of the group, number 92. In front of him, number 94, is Logan Owen. And the man in the middle, 93, is Dan McClay, the British sprinter. Tom Scully, number 95, the big Kiwi. He's been, I think, the real driver of Education First in this hammer chase. And we can see that gap really now opening up between the two. And this has been the biggest gap we've seen between Education First and the wildcard team, Rival Readiness, the lower ranked team, or second division team from Denmark. Done a fantastic job and weren't far away from making it into the final group. But they'll have to settle for a place somewhere between 9th and 16th at the moment. They're riding in 10th. This is UAE Team Emirates, the team that led things away in this runner-up group. They've been caught and passed by 2 teams. So they are looking like they're going to pick up 11th spot at the moment in the hammer Stavanger. The man at the back, number 24, that's Yusuf Mirza, the man from UAE team, the country where the team is from.
And also double national champion of his country. The kit is not that much different from the team kit, but he is actually in a championships kit. So what is going to happen for second place? Because I do think that first place is gone now for Education First. They have it. But are Team Emirates going to overtake the Rival Readiness team? And when are they going to make their move?
They're starting to make inroads again through the last check. There's just 7 seconds between Emirates and Rival, and 8 seconds between Rival and the leaders, Education First. So they're evenly spaced out on the road. And UAE Team Emirates are not yet out of this. They can see Education First just up the road. If they can up the tempo, there's still a chance of coming back and taking 9th in the hammer Stavanger and setting the fastest time at the moment. Whichever team leads across the line with their 4th rider from this runners-up group, they will go into the hot seat with the fastest time for the hammer chase. It'll be up to the finalist group teams to try and beat that time.
And with all this chasing going on as it is, it does make the teams maybe a little bit faster than they would have been if they were not being hunted down like they are all the time. So that might be an advantage to the teams in the runners-up group, that there's such a fierce battle going on between them, and it will make the Education First guys faster, because they just cannot relax at this point in the race, because there's still too much pressure coming from behind.
It really is pushing them on. Look at that aerodynamic position of Sebastian Langeveld. He swings off, next man takes over, and you just see the speed at which the scenery is whizzing by behind them. Even though they're riding into a headwind at the moment, they're sitting above 50 kilometres an hour.
The Rival Readiness team are down. No, this is Education Dimension data, of course. They are down to 4. They are also in 4th place.
And what that means is they cannot afford any mishaps. It's really important to keep the 5 riders intact as long as possible. You must finish with 4. And if someone has a mechanical and you're down to 4, well, your time will be whenever that guy returns. So you either must wait or he has to just ride his way in individual time trial, but there's no good not waiting. You've got to wait. Based on the 4th rider, you just got to all sit up and wait for him. So it's important for as long as possible to keep 5 men on board. You've got one up the sleeve, so to speak.
They are 50 seconds behind Team Emirates, and they have a gap of a minute on the team behind them, the Israel Cycling Academy. So if something happens with mechanical for Team Dimension Data, they have got some time before they are being overtaken by the team behind them. But of course, 4 guys, it's not ideal, and you can still, in that last 6-7 kilometers, well, collapse. It's so hard what's going on today.
We'll talk about collapsing. One of the riders of Rival Redinets, he is really struggling at the back of the group, and that gap is opening up in front of him. So it looks like they are now down to 4 men. They are losing 1, and that is good news for this team in the screen. And there are also little cracks starting to appear amongst UAE Team Emirates, but they will now see that one rider has been dislodged from Rival Redinets, and with 5 men now against 4, that's a real advantage over this final 5 kilometres.
This is the Swedish national road champion, Lukas Eriksson, who was really good in the hammer climb, but you can see he's a lightweight rider. He's not as big as the guys in front of him, so it is kind of logical that he is having trouble. But you can see from the body language from Christer Hagen here with number 111 that he is really suffering at the moment.
Number 114, and that is the big rider who lost his chain, Matthias Norsgaard. He is the man really setting the pace for Rival Redinets, and he is putting the hurt on his teammates. But this is the time of the hammer chase where you've just got to give it everything all the way to the line now. There's no more pacing yourself. It is full effort. It is eyeballs out over 4.5K to see if they can get themselves back on terms with Education First, and then see if they can out-sprint them to the line.
I really want to see that. I really would love to see a sprint for the finish line here for the, well, sprint for 9th place in this case. We're at the Haversfjord again, and that means that we're close to the Three Swords, which means that we're close to the Stavanger Forum and the finish line, and the end of the suffering for these riders here.
Well, look at that gap, just 5 seconds between Education First and Rival, but also making some inroads or not. UAE Team Emirates, they're signalled at 22 seconds behind. We thought that once Rival were down to 4 riders, that might be possible for UAE to start making the catch on the team in 2nd place. But it looks like it's going to be a battle to lead in the runners-up group between Education First and Rival, with just under 4 kilometres remaining. But it's the team registered in the USA in the pink and purple, Education First. They are still in front and in control, but only a slender margin.
Well, look at the size of these guys. They're all very big guys. These are the classic guys from the team. Guys like Sebastian Langeveld, Julius van den Berg, also Logan Owen, who is one of the guys for the classic squad of Jonathan Volter's team. And these guys, they have so much power. And they might suffer on the hammer climb like we saw on Friday night, but they are really a class on its own in a team time trial. But the Rival Readiness team, they might have one trick left up their sleeves.
Well, they are holding the gap at the moment. This is UAE. They are also now down to 4 riders. So Mirza, the UAE National Time Trial and Road Champion, he is the man who's been distanced. He's been dropped by his teammates. So they've all got to stay together now. 4th man across the line is the one that counts. And they have lost sight of the teams in front of them. So
that's done.
UAE Team Emirates, they hung in for a long time. They looked like they still had a chance, but they have capitulated with just under 3 kilometres to go for our leaders now. And that is the picture on the road. Education First. That is the team with 5 men in front, being chased by the 4 riders still left from Rival Redinets. Little crack appearing there for Education First.
Overboard for number 96. It's the youngest guy on the team, the Neo Pro. He joined the team last summer. Julius van den Berg, double U23 champion of the Netherlands, and he is gone. So it's 4 against 4 at the moment. What an exciting final to this hammer chase in the runners-up group.
Well, I'm sure that on the radio, Van den Berg was told, you're probably the weakest of the 5. Give us one more big turn. Everything you've got before you let go. And that's exactly what he's done. And the speed limit here, 50 kilometres an hour. Well, I'm sure they've just broken the speed limit, because this section, even though it's into a slight headwind, they have still been riding above 50 kilometres an hour through this section, but now the road starts to rise in front of them. Just 2 kilometres to go, and a couple of little false flat sections before they get onto the last 500 or 600 metres where it really flattens out, and they'll pick up a full tailwind. And then it will be sprint time, it looks like, between these two teams.
And everything has to stay together. And you can see that Torkil Veje is having trouble keeping that wheel of Matthias Norsgaard in front of him. But also the fourth guy of Education First is having trouble after that last turn. So you have to keep your team together, because it's the fourth guy across the line that counts. And Torkil Veje, he's having trouble to follow the pace of his three teammates at the moment.
Well, they swing through the final corner with 1.3 kilometres to go. The road now drags up for Education First, and Rival just 3 seconds behind. Now, as they come into the finish, you'd be used to keeping your eye on who's going to be first across the line. Keep your eyes on the fourth man from each team.
And
Could have the first, second and third guy across the line. Keep an eye on fourth. You can see what a drag this is up this section of the course. Rival just looking like they're struggling to close the gap. In fact, it's opening up. So that gap has opened up this little uphill drag. Now, Rival now got to empty the tanks and see if they can cross the gap. But it looks like it's going to be Education First.
a little peek over the shoulders there from, in this case, Tom Scully, just making sure that the gap between them and the Rival Readiness team is big enough, and they seem to have this win in the runners-up group in the bag, because we are going towards the last meters of this grueling long time trial, almost 50 kilometers. And the men in pink, they have 500 meters to go. They have to keep the pace up. They cannot slack at the moment because they have to finish first.
Well, they will know now inside the final 300 metres, and they see the finish line from where they are now. They will not be caught. Education First, they have come from behind to take the lead of this runners-up group. This will place them as 9th in the Hammer Stavanger, and it will be wait and see how good the time is. They go into the hot seat, Education First, closely followed by Rival Readiness. A gallant ride by the wildcard team, just not quite enough to match the World Tour team of Education First. 55 minutes and 59 seconds into the hot seat, and they take 9th in Hammer Stavanger.
They started first, they come in third. Rival Readiness team started second and came in second, but Education First did a great job with, well, making up 58 seconds in the first place, and then overtaking all the other teams in front of them and winning this race with a 6-second margin. Great job by Education First, but also, I must say, a fantastic job by Rival Readiness.
I think they've really exceeded expectations, Rival Readiness, against World Tour squads here in the Hammer Chase. As we look at dimension data with Edvald Bosenhagen, one of the big favourites of the crowd here in Norway, and I'm sure he's going to receive a huge cheer from the fans along the barriers as he makes his way in. Dimension data, the gap proving to be just too much to get themselves on terms with the first teams that took off, and had themselves caught somewhat in no man's land throughout the Hammer Chase as they come in 1 minute and 19 seconds down on Education First.
Well, Robbie, I absolutely love this. I loved this Hammer Chase. It was so exciting. Overtaken, then dropping back, being overtaken again. What a fantastic race.
It is a lot of fun, and that is the appetizer before we see our group of finalists, the 8 teams that were ranked the highest after the Hammer Climb and the Hammer Sprint over the last 2 days. And they will go head-to-head, and it'll be Jumbo-Visma, the team that won the Hammer Climb. They just managed to maintain that top position.
So they're only 6th in the Hammer Sprint, so...
In fact, it was so close to see which teams were, or in what order they were going to be. There were 4 teams who were ranked equally after the Hammer Climb and the Hammer Sprint. And they were just separated by, in the end, just tenths of points to determine the start order for the Hammer Chase as the rest of the teams are coming in.
And that shows how exciting the hammer chase in the finalist group is going to be between Jumbo-Visma, Sunweb, Mitchelton Scott and the Koning Quickstep. So please stay tuned because it's going to be awesome.
This is Israel Cycling Academy coming in with their 4 riders. Fourth man across the line stops the clock, 2 minutes and 47 seconds. And they are not quite caught by Team Trek Segafredo, who finally roll across the line. They'll finish 14th in the Hammer Stavanger, 2 minutes and 56 seconds down on the group winner, Education First. So 48 kilometres, almost 49, just shy of it, in just shy of 56 minutes.
Oh, well, 2 more teams to the finish line. Delco Marseille Provence with 5 riders still, and Caja Rural. And we've seen when they passed the finish line there for the penultimate lap, the Spanish team, that the unfortunate Russian sprinter Sergei Chernetsky on his road bike, because he probably physically, after that crash on day 1 on the Hammer Climb day, that he could not ride a time trial bike. But such a valiant effort from Sergei Chernetsky to try and keep up with his teammates on a normal road bike.
Here is Delco Marseille Provence, and their hammer chase is now behind them, 3 minutes and 54 seconds down on Education First, starting towards the back of the runner-up group and staying there as well. 15th in the Hammer Stavanger, and that is Stavanger, the town that gives its name to this hammer race, the first of the series in 2019, and in 2 weeks we'll be in Limburg for Hammer Limburg. And here's a replay we see of Education First crossing the line in the final 5 kilometres. Those power outputs for Sebastian Langeveld, 360 watts, an average speed of 50.5 kilometres an hour, and that is all into a headwind. Just this last 500 or 600 metres they pick up that tailwind, although it wouldn't have felt like it by the time they got there. That is almost 1 hour of intense suffering. Take a look across the fjord here in Stavanger. Thousands and thousands of islands dotted all over the fjords here. And if you've never visited Norway, or specifically the fjords region here, then I recommend you do it. It is an absolutely beautiful place to come, not just to ride a bike, but to go hiking. I did it last year when I was here in Norway, up above the Lissefjord, and went to the Preacher's Pulpit, the big rock or the cliff over the fjord. Had a little peek over the edge, 650 metres straight down. That's stomach turning. I don't recommend to everyone you go and do that, but it's worth the walk up there for the scenery. Just like this, take the ferry across the fjord, and then it's just a short distance to get to the hiking trail there. What a beautiful Sunday here in Stavanger. Maybe the teams who have just completed their hammer chase wouldn't agree that it's such a beautiful Sunday. They've been riding around at heart rates 180 beats a minute and more, and it's been a whole lot of suffering, but all over in less than an hour. Education First, they led home the runners-up group. They are the 8 teams in the lower half of the table after the first 2 days of racing in the Hammer Climb and the Hammer Sprint. And this is our final team coming towards the line. Caja Rural, the Spanish squad, the pro-continental squad, who are a wildcard entry. We have here in the Hammer Stavanger 12 World Tour teams, and then 4 teams from what you might call the second division. Fantastic riders nonetheless, and the one missing from the Caja Rural squad as they come in is Chernetsky, the man who had a heavy fall during the Hammer Climb stage, a high speed after the top of the climb, and he started this hammer chase on his normal road bike, so it was always to be expected he was going to struggle. And Caja Rural, they come in and stop the clock 7 minutes and 7 seconds down on Education First, and they'll be very glad that that's over. Education First, they might be ruining the fact that they didn't do well enough in the first 2 disciplines, the climb and the sprint, to put themselves in the top 8 to then be able to have a crack at winning the Hammer Stavanger. Although their time, 55 minutes and 59 seconds, it does put them in the hot seat with the fastest time, so they can win this discipline, the Hammer Chase. Of course, the overall for the 3 days of racing, the Hammer Stavanger, will be taken out by one of the top 8 teams, which are yet to start. And there is the confirmation of our results. This runner-up group, Education First, 1 second under 56 minutes. Rival Readinets, so they were the revelation of this Hammer Chase in this runners-up group, just 6 seconds down. UAE Team Emirates, they were the team that led away, but they dropped 2 spots down to third and were followed in by Dimension Data. Israel Cycling Academy just managed to hold off Trek Segafredo, and then 2 of the wildcard teams, Delco Marseille Provence and Caja Rural, came in 7th and 8th. Well, plenty of action, plenty of catches made too throughout this Hammer Chase. And the biggest action yet to come. This was the start of the day, and our first teams heading out was UAE, who led away, Rival Readinets, and then pretty quickly it was Education First. The men in pink breathing down their neck, and this was a terrible moment for Rival Readinets, this mechanical problem for arguably their strongest rider. And he had to get his chain back on. It cost them vital seconds. So then they saw themselves pretty soon after that passed by Education First. But then they found their rhythm. They managed to stay in touch with Education First as they then made another catch. They passed UAE Team Emirates. This was on the 2nd of 3 laps. Education First, they looked to be storming towards the win in the runners-up group, which would give them 9th place in the Hammer Stavanger. But they weren't going to have it all their own way, because Rival Readinets, they settled into the rhythm, they regained their composure, and it was the Danish wildcard team who repassed Education First. Though it was short-lived, Education First, a team of the World Tour, very experienced in teams time trials, and that's what essentially what this Hammer Chase is. Education First, they repassed Rival. Rival were then down to 4. They dropped 1 rider. Eriksson, the Swedish road champion, was the man off late in the Hammer Chase. Education First, they sacrificed 1 rider. It was Vandenberg who was left behind, and the other 4 pushing through to the finish. And they had done enough to cross the line first of the runners-up group. Rival Readinets, they pushed them all the way, coming in just 6 seconds down on Education First. They'll be extremely happy with the way they've presented themselves and defended their colours here in the Hammer Stavanger. So the runners-up group, more or less going to expectations that a World Tour team would cross the line first, and we had thought from that start order that Education First were the most likely. So 3rd of the runner-up group, Team United Arab Emirates, the team of Alexander Christoph, who didn't take part today. He's the man chosen to sit out. And 2nd place, the Danish team Rival Readinets. And taking out the runners-up group, Education First, with a commanding ride. Smooth, steady, powerful, controlled. Everybody equally matched. And that is exactly what you need for the Hammer Chase. 4 men together as they cross the line. 9th place in Hammer Stavanger for Education First. So the scene is set for the battle to commence. So we're just rounding up Education First for an interview. Jose has dashed out of the commentary booth, and fairly shortly she'll be getting them all together. Of course, the riders eager to have a warm down, get themselves on the rollers, ride that lactic acid out of the legs. So Jose is out there running around feverishly, trying to corral the riders from Education First, and we can get their take on what it was like out on course, the 3 laps of 16.3 kilometres. for a total of 48.9 kilometres, the Hammer Chase. As right at the moment, the finalist group, the 8 teams that were highest ranked after the Hammer Climb and the Hammer Chase, well, they are warmed up and ready to go. And most of them, they've gone through the motions. They are now off the home trainers and out on the road and ready to make a start. And it will be Team Jumbo-Visma who go off first. They will have a 30-second gap to defend over Team Sunweb. Mitchelton Scott another 28 seconds further back. 25 seconds after that will be De Koning Quickstep, the winners of the Hammer Sprint yesterday. Lotto Soudal will be another 23 seconds in arrears. Then 19 seconds further back to Bora Hansgrohe, followed by Team Ineos with a lot of work to do. 2 minutes 27 behind Team Jumbo. They will start. And then we will have our final team roll off, which is CCC. They scraped in to the finalist group after yesterday's Hammer Sprint, mostly thanks to Lukas Wisniewski, the big man from CCC, who gathered a whole heap of points, 2 sets of double points, plus another first and a second, and that was enough to put CCC into 8th position. So we do have Pascal Inkhorn standing by to be interviewed before they get underway. Or actually, it's a pre-recorded interview.
So Pascal, you guys will go first today. You will be the ones being chased. What's the mindset? What's the approach? How have you guys prepared for being first out today?
Yeah, we just go full gas. You know, it's nice to start the first position, and we have a good gap, 30 seconds on Sunweb, so yeah, we'll see how it will finish.
And how likely do you think it is that Sunweb might be able to catch you? Have you ridden Hammer before? Yeah. So you know how the chase operates. What's the likelihood that someone can catch you, do you think? What's the likelihood that you think that someone will be able to catch up with you guys today?
There's always a chance, but yeah, 30 seconds is a big gap, and yeah, if the other team starts really fast, we need to just keep our own pace and not blow up. Because yeah, if you probably they will start faster, and there's a chance they will blow up.
In your experience of the weekend and as a whole, how has it been for you?
Yeah, it was really nice. Of course, the first day that we take the win in the last lap, and our first Hammer win. So yeah, it was good. And yesterday was a bit of a strange race, but yeah, we managed to keep the first position.
Good luck. So Alex, you guys will go off today. 2 teams in front of you. What's the plan? How do you go about trying to sort of work down that disadvantage?
Yeah, of course. I think it's a really interesting and a hard one to do. Normally in a team time trial, you just go as hard as you can against the clock. But here you've actually got teams behind you, teams in front. But we're just going to try and ride our own race. I think you can't get too caught into wanting to race, which is what all black riders want to do. But first of all, we just need to get 2 laps done. Hopefully do a good stand, and then we can really bring it home in the last lap.
And through your weekend here, Hammer Stavanger, how's it been as an experience on the bike, off the bike, sort of like as an overall experience?
Well, for me, it's actually been really good because I didn't do the first 2 days, so I've just flown in for today. So I guess that's a bit more out of pressure on me to actually do something today and help the guys. But I think the boys have done a really good job. Yeah, in the climb, they were picking up good points, and then yesterday, Eddie at the end there showed how much form he's got at the moment, and we've got some points, which is good. So we're in 3rd place. I think it'd definitely be a lot better if we were in 1st, but we're definitely not out of it, and we're not going to go down without swinging. So I think we're in for a big ride today, but hopefully we can do something good.
Great. Thanks very much. Best of luck.
Yeah, great. Alex Atmanson, he hasn't done the Hammer Climb, he hasn't done the Hammer Sprint, but he's here as, of course, a super time trial champion, as he is, to add some extra energy to the team. Well, I have been looking around for the Education First team, but of course, I didn't want to miss the start here. They were warming down, as you explained, Robbie, which is very important after such an effort. So, well, hopefully we'll speak to them a little bit later, because it was such a fantastic race. And maybe we'll speak to them later, because their time of 55.01 might even be the fastest time.
Of course, we saw the clock stopped at 55.59, but they started 58 seconds behind, so on adjusted time, 55.01.
That's pretty fast.
48.9 kilometres. That is an average well into the 50s. So that's what's required. But probably more importantly for these teams standing on the start line now, they just want to be first across the line to win the Hammer Stavanger. It'll be a bonus if they can win the chase as well. Jumbo-Visma, they will lead things away. Armand Grøndal-Jansen, Dylan Groenewegen, the sprinter. Well, he didn't factor yesterday in the sprint. He's going to try and help his team to the win here, along with Inkhorn
and Teunissen. And the next team is the team in second position at the moment. Søren Kragh Andersen, Nikias Arndt, Kasper Pedersen, Michael Storer and Max Walscheid are the 5 guys in red for Team Sunweb.
Mitchelton Scott, they're pretty confident they can catch up. Eduardo Affini, a great ride yesterday, and the fresh legs of Alexander Edmondson, time trial specialist, particularly in the team's time trial, along with Mezek Skotsen.
Stannard.
And Robin Stannard.
And the Koning Quickstep in 4th position with Remco Evenepoel, Alvaro Hodge, Yves Lampaert, Davide Martinelli and Peter Vakovic. Of course, the 5 guys we've seen in the Hammer Climb and the Hammer Sprint as well, because they only sent 5 guys. My favourites for today, Robbie, are Mitchelton Scott.
I think it's going to be a really tight run race, and I've just got this feeling in my bones that it's going to come down to a team sprint situation. I really hope it is.
Yes, please.
But Jumbo-Visma, they have a 30-second gap. As we just saw in the runners-up group, the teams behind will always be able to see them. They're getting the countdown.
And they're off for the Hammer Chase, Team Jumbo-Visma. And of course, the next team, they're already lining up because they're only 30 seconds behind. And we've seen in the runners-up group how fast that gap can be bridged.
I think it's easy to panic as leading team to try and go off really quickly to maintain the gap. You've got to think in terms of a 48.9 kilometre team's time trial and your overall time or effort and how you pace that. But that time ticks away so quickly, and now Sunweb are off in pursuit of Jumbo-Visma.
Next team on the line, only 28 seconds behind the team in front of them are Mitchelton Scott. They are, of course, a great team time trial squad. They have great pedigree on this discipline. So I'm very curious what Affini, Edmondson, Mesket, Skotsen and Stannard can do here. They are, of course, the defending champions in Hammer Stavanger, so they still want to defend that crown.
Oh, they certainly do. They're defending champions of Hammer Stavanger, and they won the Hammer Series overall last year. They took the title in Hammer Hong Kong. They performed also well in Hammer Limburg, which is on in 2 weeks' time, or just a little bit less. So Mitchelton Scott, they are off on the chase. And as we go through the order, the gaps get smaller and smaller as we go along. Evenepoel, Hodge, they are off from the start line to Koenig Quickstep. They are also out there with Yves Lampaert, a very strong time trialist, Martinelli, and of course Peter Vakovic. Superb ride yesterday. Good to see him back after a long injury layoff.
Only 23 seconds between the Koenig Quickstep and their Belgian rivals of Lotto Soudal, and they're off for their race. The start intervals, they're getting smaller and smaller. Bora Hansgrohe, the stars of the first day of the Hammer Climb, with Sam Bennett here on the left side of your screen, on the right side of the group. He's still smiling after 2 days of grueling racing, but Sam Bennett is ready to race again with Archbold, with Gatto, with Fingston. And then 20 seconds behind them are Team Ineos.
Well, looking at Sam Bennett just shows you how unpredictable the Hammer Series is. Sam Bennett performed so well in the Hammer Climb, then was a non-factor in the Hammer Sprint. It's the opposite to what you'd expect. Team Ineos ready to head out with Kirienka, former world time trial champion in the individual time trial 2015. Ghana, the reigning world pursuit champion. Michael Govash, Chris Lawless and Ben Swift. This is CCC, the final team of the finalists group. And CCC with Serge Pauls, Simon Shanok, Nathan van Hooydonk, Guillaume van Kiersbulke and Lukas Wisniewski. He did a fantastic ride yesterday, dragged his team into the finalist group. And we are with our leaders, Jumbo-Visma. And there is the time split, top of screen, 31 seconds. So they've gone 1 second further in front at the moment. Very, very early days with just 3 kilometres covered at the moment.
Number 74 is the young Danish rider Jonas Vingegaard. He's one of those guys that needs to be a domestique, for example, for Primoz Roglic, for Steven Kruiswijk. And if you've seen the Tour of Romandy, he's already shown what he's made of. But look at the other guys, and then the young Danish guy. He's very skinny.
Yeah, he's a lightweight, looking more like a climber. And you compare him to the muscular figure in front of him of Dylan Groenewegen, you can see what a difference in horsepower there would be in a sprint. You'd send them uphill, it's going to be a whole different story. Maybe they'll be fairly evenly matched in this hammer chase, the team's time trial format. This is Mike Turnison at the back, number 75. On the back of Sunweb, 56. The huge figure of Max Walscheid.
Well, like he said in the interview yesterday, I'm a big-boned sprinter.
Well, he's sitting behind Nicky's aunt, number 53, who's a big guy. And he's making him look like a schoolboy.
Yeah, it's lovely. And Max Walscheid, such a talented guy. They haven't had much luck yet, Sunweb. Their Giro team is down to 4, of course, with Dumoulin crashing out of the race. So they need a good result, but can they win Hammer Stavanger? What do you think?
Their Giro team, mechanical problem here for Mitchelton Scott. So that is disaster.
This is Alex
early
Edmondson.
in. So the man who's flown in especially for the hammer chase,
that's Edmondson.
That is disaster for Mitchelton Scott. So another chain mishap. The derailleur just completely curled around, and the mechanic really having trouble trying to get that chain out.
Well,
and what does the team do now in this situation? Do they wait or do they keep going?
They need him.
I think with 49 kilometres of team's time trialing, they really do need him. And he can't sit behind another team. He has been passed by De Koenig Quickstep.
So that's half a minute.
Well, I really wonder what they're going to do. That is a huge loss, and half a minute is a lot to give away just like that.
Well, that was a very short Hammer Stavanger for Alex Edmondson. And, well, the Koenig Quickstep, they started 30 minutes behind Mitchelton, 30 seconds behind Mitchelton Scott. So that is the actual gap that Alex Edmondson has to make up. It's a huge, huge ask for him to do.
Well, Jumbo-Visma, they are out in front, 30 seconds, so the gap intact at the moment from what they started with. But Mitchelton Scott, 1 minute and 34 seconds.
Seems
they
like they're
started
waiting.
58 seconds behind, so they must be waiting for Alexander Edmondson. But that is a massive blow to Koenig Quickstep, 128. They've passed Edmondson. They've passed the team car of Mitchelton Scott. So there is an update now. Mitchelton Scott no longer signalled there in the graphic.
Well, look at the team car.
So guys, you have to wait, guys in the front. We have Edmo who had a problem. Wait for Edmo.
Well,
Guys in the front.
it's very clear. They are waiting. There's the team car. There is the rest of the team. So Mitchelton Scott, that is a massive blow to their chances of defending this Hammer Stavanger title. Alex Edmondson time trialling his way back onto the team. They will now know he's about to rejoin. He's given the yell, go. Well, that is not very good timing either.
No.
They needed to try and get straight back up to speed so he could just rejoin the back in the slipstream. So that's lost them another couple of seconds.
How do you make that call in a team car as a sports director? Are we going to wait or are we not going to wait? What are the factors to take in?
That would be pre-planned, especially with a powerhouse for the team's time trial like Alexander Edmondson, who's going to be one of the big engines for Mitchelton Scott in this hammer chase. They would have spoken about it in the team meeting and said, okay, if someone has a problem, a mechanical, a flat tyre, before a certain point in the hammer chase, we will wait. Or if it's rider X, we will not wait. So they have all that figured out and they would have known immediately. Edmondson problem, we wait. Lap 2, maybe not anymore. So they really would have figured all these things out. They're very experienced with the team's time trial, also Mitchelton Scott. They really just have to try and now settle, find their rhythm.
Boys, come on, come on, come on.
So just a bit of encouragement from Lorenzo Lepage, the Belgian team director.
Nothing a lot. Come on, we keep them on the distance there. Come on, boys.
So really just trying to get his team to settle back in and just telling them, just hold them at the distance you've got them at the moment. So at least they can use De Koenig Quickstep as a little bit of the dangling carrot and pace themselves off that. And then they've still got more than 2.5 laps to get themselves back into the rhythm and back in contention, but they are a long, long way behind. This team on screen, Jumbo-Visma, the men in yellow, they are leading.
Well, the gap between Jumbo-Visma and Team Sunweb, you think it's a Dutch team, but they're not. They're actually a German team. They have a German license. The women's team, however, is a Dutch team, but that's a whole different story. So the Dutch team of Jumbo-Visma, they hold their gap, and the new GPS even indicates that they gained 4 seconds on Team Sunweb.
Well, we had spoken about Vingegaard. Maybe he was going to struggle in this hammer chase. He's the man on the front, so the slightly built climber of Vingegaard, the young Dane, he looked quite frail, but he is punching out some huge power on the front of the Jumbo-Visma team. This is the nearest chasers. Second last position there, number 55, the young Australian Michael Storer. And there is one of our onboard cameras that just brings such incredible footage out of the Hammer Series races. And here's some right now, as if on cue.
Of course, you ask for it, and you get exactly what you want, Robbie.
Yeah,
this is so incredibly cool because you can see how still these guys are on the bike.
That was Nicky Arndt filming into the face of Max Walscheid. Arndt, he swings off, and that is that little camera mounted behind the saddle. So number 53, Nicky Arndt, he swung off the front, drops to the back, picks up the slipstream, and this is a chance just for a few moments, get the heart rate down, maybe just shift down a gear, try and spin the legs out just a little bit. So it's about effort recovery in a hammer chase.
Well, the GPS indicates that Lotte Soudal are also past Mitchelton Scott, but that can't be true.
No, well, we saw Mitchelton Scott sitting just behind De Koning Quickstep on the road, and they had them in their sights. We heard Lorenzo Lepage, the team director of Mitchelton Scott, telling his boys, keep Quickstep in sight, use them to gauge your effort. So they are there. We'll have an update. Just a little anomaly with the GPS, I would think. This is Dylan Groenewegen, and he's behind one of his teammates, not behind the camera motorbike. It's another one of our rear-mounted cameras filming into the face of the man I think is the fastest sprinter in the world at the moment.
Well,
2 stage wins in the Tour de France last year, and he is lightning.
That says something coming from you, Robbie, with your history and your palmares. So we are looking forward towards, of course, that Tour de France, but that's still a month and, well, 10 days, something like that from now. This is far more exciting at the moment, because Team Sunweb, they are chasing down Jumbo-Visma. And this is, in fact, a shot of Mitchelton Scott on the bottom of your screen and Team De Koning Quickstep on the top of your screen. But they seem to be losing some time on De Koning Quickstep here.
Well, they were quite a way behind. Once they got past, Edmondson was passed by De Koning Quickstep, and then the rest of the Mitchelton Scott team were forced to wait for him, which I think really was the best decision, to still have 5. Because if they had continued with 4 and then had one more mechanical problem, that was the race over entirely. Now they can still salvage possibly a top 3, but they will need quite an incredible ride to win Hammer Stavanger. So disaster struck very early, and we saw it with Rival Redinets, the Danish team in the runners-up group. They had a mechanical problem for one of their riders, the chain off as well, quite like happened to Alex Edmondson. It cost them a whole chunk of time. And for Mitchelton Scott, well, it's cost them even more. He had to stop, and the mechanic had to reef the chain out. Seemed to be stuck between the chainring and the frame. Some more onboard footage from within Team Sunweb. Nicky Arndt carrying one of the cameras. And that is him dropping to the back, number 53, the German rider, former winner of the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. A handy sprinter, can survive quite a tough parcours as well. And the big man on the front, Max Walscheid, the sprinter of Team Sunweb. And behind him, Storer, number 55. And then down the line, Kasper Pedersen, the 3rd man in line. Back to our leaders, who have increased their advantage over the chasers. They started with 30 seconds. They now have 36, as they have around 4, or is that a 3? That's a 4 kilometre to go. It is. 12 kilometres into this 49-kilometre chase.
Well, it's absolutely no conservative strategy that Frans Maassen, the team director of Jumbo-Visma, has chosen, because they are winning time at the moment on their chasers, Team Sunweb. And, well, maybe they have chosen a conservative schedule in the chase.
Well, we did hear Pascal Encorn right before they started. He said, basically, we're just going to go as hard as we possibly can from the start. We're going to ride not thinking of who's chasing or tactically. We're just going to go as hard as we can. It's all we can do in this position. It is that case of fox and hound, and everybody is pursuing them. Mitchelton Scott, they seem to be settling back into the rhythm. They are closing the gap now on the Koenig Quick-Step. A big advantage at the moment for Mitchelton Scott that they're closing in on the team in front of them, and the team car is still in between. That will be providing them, even though they're keeping a legal distance from the slipstream of the team of De Koenig Quick-Step. It's not their fault that the car's in between, and that will be just pushing some wind in front of them. And that will be giving them a little bit of an advantage as they make their run. Shouldn't be long before that team car is called out of the way by the officials. Dylan Groenewegen here on the back of the Jumbo-Visma train. So the sprinter, you can see him just able to ease off the pedals now and again, a little bit of a freewheel as he enjoys that slipstream, get that heart rate down and get ready for his next turn on the front. And I wonder what their tactic will be. Dylan Groenewegen, not a noted time trialist, although quite often sprinters can ride a good team's time trial, because it's that intense effort, slide back, recover quickly, and then go again. But they'll need to keep 5 on board as long as possible. Always got to be wary of when you drop down to 4 riders, and if one of them has any sort of issue, it can ruin your entire hammer race. In this case, the hammer chase today, and all vying for the victory in Hammer Stavanger. The first team across the line with their 4th rider will lift the trophy and spray the champagne at the end of the day.
Well, Mitchelton Scott seem to be closing in on the Koenig Quick-Step. The Koenig Quick-Step team car has had to leave the team, making it a little bit more honest for the team in front, because there's no drafting for the team car, from the team car for these guys from Australia. Back in the group with number 2, number 3 is Alex Edmondson. If you're just tuning in for this Hammer Chase, this finalist group of the Hammer Chase in Stavanger, a big upset for Mitchelton Scott. Just in the first kilometre already, there was a mechanical for Alex Edmondson, who hasn't done the Hammer Climb, he hasn't done the Hammer Sprint. His only purpose here in Norway, in Stavanger, is to ride the Hammer Chase, and to lose him in a minute was devastating. And Lorenzo Lepage, the team manager, or the sports director in this case, made the quick decision to wait for Edmo.
As they come past that monument, the 3 swords, you just catch a glimpse of the flags below, and the wind is straight into the face of the riders along this section. A really tough little sector of this 16.3 kilometre lap that they will cover 3 times for a total of 48.9 kilometres. And I'm sure that Alex Edmondson will be able to dig that little bit deeper now after that mechanical, try and make up for it. Comparison between Krol Andersen from Sunweb on the right and Dylan Groenewegen, sprinter from Jumbo-Visma, on the left. Average power, that's fairly comparable over the first 5 kilometres. 390 for Groenewegen, a little bit higher for Krol Andersen, and the average speed a little bit higher for Jumbo-Visma, and that would explain why they've eked out another 6 seconds advantage over what they started with.
But not only on Sunweb, but also on the Koenig Quick-Step. They've gained time on all their rivals in this first lap of 3 of the Hammer Chase. So a great start from the guys that won the Hammer Climb and had some trouble yesterday in the Hammer Sprint. Didn't get as many points as they would have liked with this guy on the left of your screen, Dylan Groenewegen. But today it's all about payback, and they are on a roll. They are doing very well, but there's only 1 or 3 laps done at the moment. You have to really balance your effort over the 3 laps.
A third of the way through, they've made a fast start, but they've looked incredibly smooth. And as they go past our commentary position, absolute clockwork from Jumbo-Visma, and they are just steadily opening the gap over Sunweb. They started with a 30-second advantage. That's the way the Hammer Chase works. The top-ranked team goes first, 30 seconds to the first chaser. And Sunweb have, at the moment, given up another 7 seconds to the men in yellow from Jumbo-Visma.
Well, the Koenig Quickstep, who are currently in 3rd position, they had 1 minute and 23. They started 1 minute 23 seconds behind Team Jumbo-Visma, and they're now at 1:43. So Jumbo-Visma have done a great first lap.
It'd be interesting to get the splits lap by lap, comparing Education First to the time of our leaders now.
5 seconds on Sunweb and 15 seconds on Quickstep. Very good.
Well, Frans Maassen happy with what the boys did, and of course behind the wheel was Maarten Wijnands.
How about the chauffeur?
Well, I think this is the safest way to do it, Robbie, because a lot of times you still see the sports director driving a car, doing the communication with his riders. So this is a far safer option, and I think more teams should do that. Not with a rider, of course, but with a second sports director.
Often they do, certainly in teams' time trials where they're trying to get time splits and give information. They'll have someone else driving the car. You just don't see that it's one of the riders driving the car. But a bit unique here in the Hammer Series. You come with 7 riders, 5 ride each discipline. And Maarten Wijnands, he's not riding in the Hammer Chase. So making himself useful to the team and getting behind the wheel.
I was here anyway, so hey.
De Koenig Quickstep, they are through. 1 minute 51 down on Jumbo-Visma. Mitchelton Scott just passing our commentary position right now in 4th, 2 minutes and 4 seconds down. And you would think now they will not catch Jumbo-Visma. Indeed, I don't think they'll catch Sunweb either. So your early prediction, although I thought it was a good prediction, what you can't predict is mechanical bad luck.
And that's exactly what happened to Mitchelton Scott. In the first kilometre, Alex Edmondson had a problem with his chain, and well, Ineos and Mitchelton Scott, they're fighting a battle, and also the Koenig Quickstep, they're only 30 seconds apart, the Koenig Quickstep, Mitchelton Scott and Team Ineos, and also Bora Hansgrohe. And look at that, CCC and Lotto Soudal, they're fighting as well for the positions 7 and 8. It seems like the first catch is going to be made between CCC and Lotto Soudal for places 7 and 8.
Well, looking at those standings as they come through, it was looking very much like it's a 2-team race for the victory in Hammer Stavanger, Jumbo-Visma and Sunweb, and then there was a block of 3 teams, De Koenig Quickstep, Mitchelton Scott and Ineos, really closely packed together, and further behind them we did see CCC making inroads coming across at the same time as Lotto Soudal. Also not far in front, in between, is Bora Hansgrohe.
Looking at Team Sunweb, their gap has stabilised at the moment. They started with 30 seconds, then it went up to 38, and now it's back to 36. Maybe they started their second lap and trying to make up some ground on Team Jumbo-Visma. But so far, Team Jumbo-Visma, not with their big time trial guys like Tony Martin, Jos van Emden, but with their sprinter team mostly, and the climber Jonas Vingegaard. So all in all, they're doing a great job, but will they be the winners of Hammer Stavanger, or will they be the winners of the Hammer Chase? Because that's 2 different things. The time set by Education First was 55:01, and that is the time to beat to win the Hammer Chase. We're going to look at a little replay of that devastating moment for Mitchelton Scott just after the start when Alex Edmondson dropped his chain.
Well, we just saw his power stats, the chase that he had to make to come back after the mechanical. 500 watts was his average power in the chase back to the team. So maximal effort, and it was around a 30-40 second chase that he had to make once he got going again. Back to our leaders, this is Jumbo-Visma, and in interestingly, after the first lap of this hammer chase for our finalist group, the fastest team was Team Ineos. Their fastest time split, CCC second, Jumbo-Visma the third fastest split.
They're closing in on Mitchelton Scott as we speak.
They certainly are. So they're making their way through the field, Team Ineos. On the road, they are 2 minutes 18 behind Jumbo-Visma, and that's where Hammer Stavanger will be won. But of course, the fastest time can still win the hammer chase, the day prize, if you like. So Ineos well in the running for that. And the time to beat there is that set by Education First of 55 minutes and 1 second.
It might be the time to beat, because I think it's a really, really strong time by the American team, especially because there was so much chasing going on and they could profit from that game that they played with Team Emirates and Rival Readiness. So we'll have to see after all the teams have finished the hammer chase who will win the event today, the hammer chase. And well, it looks very good for Jumbo-Visma so far to win the Hammer Stavanger, but we're not even halfway into this race. And Sunweb, they are looking very, very smooth.
De Koning Quickstep, well, they made a catch a lot sooner than they would have expected. That mechanical mishap for Mitchelton Scott by Alexander Edmondson. Well, that saw De Koning Quickstep whiz on by Remco Evenepoel. He's been so active in this Hammer Stavanger, in the hammer climb and the sprint. He's been off the front, he's been in breakaways, been scoring points. And look at that, 53 kilometres an hour. Tailwind section along here.
Well,
Evenepoel, number 11, sitting at the back of his team.
Well, he seems to have a little bit of trouble getting into that time trial position. And also, if you look at his body, it's not as still as, for example, the former Belgian time trial champion, Yves Lampaert, and also now leading the team, Davide Martinelli. The only movement you see from the Italian is his legs. And with Remco Evenepoel, he's moving about a little on the bike.
That's Mitchelton Scott at the top of screen. Behind them, that is Team Ineos. They are the team with the fastest intermediate time of all 16 teams after lap 1. So Education First, who are the clubhouse leaders, they are 6th on intermediate time after lap 1. 18:31 was them, and Ineos 18:04, 4 seconds faster than CCC, 7 seconds faster than Jumbo-Visma. So in terms of the hammer chase, at the moment, it's Team Ineos looking for the hammer chase victory on time. The Hammer Stavanger, well, that is just first past the post with your 4th rider, and that is Jumbo-Visma, and they're doing a fantastic job. Over lap 1, they put an extra 6 or 7 seconds into Sunweb, and that is holding fast at the moment. 151 behind is De Koning Quickstep, and they don't look like they're going to be a threat to the top 2 teams. And everything's starting to bunch up further behind them. Mitchelton Scott, then Ineos. So teams starting to come together. So we will see a real battle, team against team, as we go further through this hammer chase. But smooth and steady and defending the lead is this team on screen, Jumbo-Visma. They have been fantastic all weekend, Jose. They dominated the climb. They did just enough in the sprint to maintain top position.
With Vingegaard.
And now they're hammering it home.
And it was their climber, Vingegaard, yesterday who had to save the team. And they could start this hammer chase in 1st position, but all 4 teams, Sunweb, Jumbo-Visma, Mitchelton Scott, and De Koning Quickstep, were all on the same amount of points after the first 2 events here. And now we're going to have a look in one of the team cars. It's Arthur van Dongen.
The right-hand bend is coming up. The long right-hand bend is coming up. In 1 line through the corner. After the corner, to go slightly uphill.
Arthur van Dongen, the sports director for Team Sunweb, and the representative from the cycling service who invites all the teams to the races, Martin van Steen.
Old teammate of mine, Marta van Steen.
Really?
Back in the day, we rode together at the Farm Frites team in the year 2000, so long ago. It's interesting to hear the instruction coming from the team director saying that right-hand corner, single file, line it out through the corner, then it goes slightly uphill. You may think, but they've already been through here once, they should know it. They've done a recon this morning, they would know it, but it's good to get those reminders, to get those cues, because you are at full intensity. It's easy to lose concentration, even lose a little bit where you are on course and what's coming up. So it's good to get those cues, and that goes into those marginal gains. Well, at least that's the phrase that was coined by the old Team Sky, which is now Ineos, but all the teams do it. It's not a new thing. Remco Evenepoel struggling to find that slipstream at the back of the group.
Well, remember, this young guy, he was racing on junior gears only last year, but his first big race, his first big time trial with the pros in the Tour of San Juan in Argentina, he had his first podium. He was third, and he was only still 18 years of age. So he knows how to ride a time trial, but he is riding with some big guys like Davide Martinelli, like former Belgian time trial champion Yves Lampaert. So he is struggling a little bit at the back there. But this is a very interesting battle. It looks like Mitchelton Scott have taken a little bit more of a gap on Team Ineos. Ineos were a little bit closer the last time we saw them.
Well, the gap between Mitchelton Scott and Ineos, about 7 seconds. Maybe Ineos just tempoing at the moment and then setting themselves for a pass. We're around halfway now through this hammer chase. 3 laps of 16.3 kilometres. Mitchelton Scott, well, they will be ruining that mechanical mishap for Alexander Edmondson. They really were concentrated on riding a big hammer chase and hunting down this team, Jumbo-Visma, and it all went wrong within 3 kilometres of the hammer chase beginning. And we look at those time gaps at the top of screen. Team Sunweb now taken back 5 seconds. Well, it's hovering in and out a little bit. Sometimes can depend on the GPS unit mounted onto the motorbikes which are following them.
Team Sunweb, they can't see the team in front of them, which is a little bit of a disadvantage. But it seems like they're making up ground, but they are not making up ground fast enough, in my opinion. They started with 30 seconds down on Jumbo-Visma, and they haven't made up 1 second of that time gap. They are losing more time.
Well, that was interesting. The onboard camera from Nikias Arndt showing Max Walscheid just having a gel. Such a short team's time trial, this hammer chase, 49 kilometres. Just getting that gel in, making sure he's got enough carbohydrates. And the intensity of this racing at the Hammer Series, you are just burning calories like there's no tomorrow. You really got to stay on top of it. And a really hard effort like this one, the man with the hammer can jump out at any given time, and you really start to feel it. So you've got to make sure you've got enough energy on board. The last 5 kilometres, or the first 5 kilometres of lap 2 of the fastest team, the stats from Vasil Kirienka, 55.1 kilometres an hour. That is the tailwind section of this course. Still quick no matter what sort of wind you're in. Average power 390 watts. That's a high power output considering he hasn't spent the whole time on the front. That's some time sitting in the wheel, semi-freewheeling, just rolling it over in the slipstream. So that is really high intensity.
Well, it looks like a catch is imminent between Team Ineos and Team Mitchelton Scott. Well, they are going towards the 3 Swords again. That's Team Jumbo-Visma. Along the Haversfjord, Team Swords signifying when Norway became one kingdom, united under one king. As it still stands today, not that they're interested in this little bit of tourist information, because they will be hurting a lot.
Team Sunweb in the red, 33 seconds the gap between the 2 teams. Still hanging in the balance, 34 seconds. That is still overcomable for Sunweb. What they'll really need is for Jumbo-Visma to start falling apart a little bit. It's not that you could say, well, Sunweb just need to ride faster. They are riding a really high rhythm. You just need to hope that that's enough.
Green in last position. Come on, there's still a long way to go. All is possible. Still the same time difference. Come on. You kill them in the last lap. Come on.
That was cool. Arthur van Dongen saying, we are going to kill them in the last lap. So that's the game plan that Team Sunweb have.
It'll be good for the riders from Sunweb to have that information. Still the same time gap. It can work both ways. They might be thinking, but we're giving it absolutely everything and we're not closing this down at all. And that can be a bit demoralising. Or by the same token, they can think, depending on how hard they're going, well, we're not losing anything else and we can still make up that time in the last lap. It is possible. 3 teams really close together. De Koning Quick-Step on the left of screen, in the middle, Mitchelton Scott, and they are about to get mowed down by Ineos, the team that has set the fastest time through lap 1 of the Hammer Chase out of all 16 teams here at the Hammer Stavanger.
They're only 15 seconds apart. De Koning Quick-Step, Mitchelton Scott and Team Ineos. So this is a very exciting battle. This is the battle for 3rd place at the moment, and the 3rd place, of course, in the Hammer Stavanger.
And a place on the podium and a bottle of champagne.
And that is very expensive in Norway, so you might as well take advantage of that.
That expensive in Norway, you'd probably be better off not spraying it.
No, that's true. Selling it on the black market.
18 kilometres to go in the Hammer Chase. They come through the next time. They will hear that beautiful sound of the bell, signalling one more lap to go. Just over 16 kilometres per lap. Back to our leaders, Jumbo-Visma. This is the final corner on the circuit. From here, it drags up. This is quite a nasty drag too on this main road that brings them into the town of Stavanger. Should I rather say the city. And at the back of the Sunweb team, there's Nikias Arndt, number 53, just struggling to get himself back in the wheel. And you really need to keep your 5 riders intact for as long as possible.
It's
the minimum number you can finish with is 4. And if you have any mishaps and you're down to 4, that is race over. So you need that 5th rider to hang in as long as he can.
It's Søren Kragh Andersen taking a very long pull there, the Danish rider with number 51. And they are going into the last kilometer. Still 5 of them. Team Jumbo-Visma with Amund Grøndal Jansen there, Norwegian rider. Dylan Groenewegen, Pascal Eekhoorn, Mike Teunissen, 3 Dutch guys. And the Danish Viking Jonas Vingegaard. Those are the 5 guys for Team Jumbo-Visma. And they're holding that 30-second gap. But we're going to have to wait for the actual time gaps on the finish line, because we just heard the Team Sunweb sports director say we are going to kill them, and them being Team Jumbo-Visma in the last lap.
Well, it's one thing to say it on the radio to your riders, it's another thing for them to be able to execute. And that's what he was talking about. We are going to execute them. 31 seconds the gap. Jumbo-Visma started with a 30-second advantage. So status quo, more or less, after 2 of 3 laps of the Hammer Chase. There it is, lap 2 complete. Dylan Groenewegen brings them up towards the line. He's used to being in front as they approach the line. Maybe not always in a team's time trial format event, but in this Hammer Chase, Jumbo-Visma come through. 36 minutes and 41 seconds they've been going for. Sunweb are certainly not giving up. I heard the words of the team director. Everything in the last lap. We're going to kill them. That remains to be seen. But I think it's going to be a close run thing.
Let's wait for the actual gap. I think it's a little bit more than 30 seconds, but we'll have to wait and see. It is indeed a little bit more than 30 seconds. It's still the exact same gap they had when they took off, what was it, over 20 kilometers ago.
Well, here's Mitchelton Scott, bottom of screen, almost making the catch on De Koning Quick-Step. They've been hovering right behind them since the mechanical incident for Alex Edmondson. they came right back up towards them. They made the team car go out from in between, but they haven't managed to make the pass. So it looks like Mitchell Scott have really plateaued at the moment, or De Koning Quickstep have responded to the acceleration by the Australian registered team. And coming in the background, there they are in the red and black, former Sky team, now Ineos.
Whoa, look at what's happening there. Team CCC,
Flash of orange.
They were the 8th team to take the start in this finalist group, and they're now up towards, well, maybe even a podium place.
Well, they were second fastest on the first split through the finish line. Team Ineos completed lap 1 in 18:04, CCC in 18:08, just 4 seconds adrift.
This is
looking like CCC are really bringing it home, and it could be them that goes to the top of the standings in terms of time.
And maybe even goes towards the podium here in the Hammer Stavanger. 3 seconds between De Koning Quickstep and Mitchelton Scott, and then another, let me see, 7 seconds between them and Team Ineos, and only a few seconds behind Team Ineos, so only 6 seconds behind them are CCC. So the battle for the podium at the moment, they're all within 13 seconds of each other. De Koning Quickstep, Mitchelton Scott, Ineos and CCC, and that is of course for the podium in the Hammer Stavanger. And CCC, the way they're riding at the moment, they could even win the Hammer Chase.
They could win the Hammer Chase with the fastest time and also get themselves onto the podium. Looks like that battle will be for third place between those teams that are at the moment 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th on the road. The other two teams look to be too far ahead to be caught anymore. Jumbo Visma versus Sunweb for the win of Hammer Stavanger. We see Bora Hansgrohe come through the finish line 2 minutes and 50 seconds down. Lotto Soudal, well, they have been further distanced.
And they started in 5th position, and they're now down to 8th for the Lotto Soudal team. So that is what's happening in the Hammer Chase. CCC, they started in 8th position. It was yesterday's fantastic performance by Lukas Wisniewski that got them into that finalist group, and they can even go towards the podium. They are going so fast, the Polish team.
Well, the big Pole, Lukas Wisniewski, he was the man doing a lot of the work on the front of the CCC team. When they came through the finish line, it was him on the front, and he was just flying. He got the bit between the teeth. He has everybody in his sights. It'll be really interesting to see these teams come together. Mitchelton Scott now making the pass on De Koning Quickstep.
And this is for 3rd place in the Hammer Stavanger.
And this is where the commissaires really have to be vigilant, because when the teams make a pass and the team who's been passed swings in too close, starts to pick up some slipstream, that's when the flag comes out. They'll get first warning if they put themselves too close, taking advantage of the team in front. But you'll see when they come to these corners, roundabout like this one, well, it's impossible not to be in the wheel. There's only one line you can take on fast sections like this one. And we have an update. Our second lap of 3, and it is CCC with the fastest time, 36 minutes and 2 seconds, 14 seconds quicker than Ineos. Jumbo Visma, they are 3rd. So that is the Hammer Chase. So the result based on time.
Well, and they've got
the biggest prize, Hammer Stavanger, first team across the line. That's what really counts.
Well, the last GPS check gave us 28 seconds for Team Sunweb. Down on Team Jumbo-Visma, but all of a sudden it's back up to 41 at the moment. These guys seem to have it in the bag for the Hammer Stavanger title. The CCC team, they might be on their way to a day victory in the Hammer Chase with Serge Pauwels, Simon Seinak, a former world champion on the track, Nathan van Hooijdonk, big guy, Guillaume van Kersburg, even bigger guy, and Lukas Wisniewski, who was of course yesterday's star racer, just coming down from the Sierra Nevada with an altitude cap, and he prepares for his other goals this season. Well, he's off to a good start.
I find that to be the beauty of the Hammer Series. It's really disrupted the cycling model. It's not your traditional type of race, wait all day long for one winner. It is true team racing. And you come here with 7 riders each day, 5 of those will compete. And it's a balancing act about who you bring here, who can do what, and there's really some surprises. We saw the sprinter Sam Bennett dominate the hammer climb almost single-handedly, pulling his team into third in the hammer climb. But consistency is always key, and that's what Jumbo-Visma have done so well. Multiple riders scoring. They won the hammer climb, did just enough in the hammer sprint to start first in the hammer chase, and they are leading. But the time gap is starting to come down between Jumbo-Visma and Sunweb.
Ineos are going to make the catch with the Koenig Quickstep, which means that Team Ineos is now going to 4th place. It seems like the Koenig Quickstep are struggling in this phase of the race, because within a short period of time, they're probably going to see Team CCC go past as well.
Well, it does look like Team De Koenig Quickstep have gone out very fast in lap 1, and they made that very early catch at Mitchelton Scott after that mechanical mishap for Alex Edmondson. But now they are fading in lap 3, and here comes CCC, the men in orange, the Polish team, and they have just been flying around this course. They were second fastest after lap 1, fastest after lap 2,
and that's of
making
all 16
huge
teams.
inroads. Yes, fastest of all 16. It's clubhouse leaders, Education First. They rode in the runners-up group with a time of 55.01. But after lap 2, Education First, 5th fastest on the splits. It's CCC. And look at these teams getting bunched up. Mitchelton Scott, Ineos, De Koenig Quickstep, CCC. It is going to be a mad battle for the final podium place in the Hammer Stavanger.
But still coming out of the tunnel first are Mitchelton Scott. They are currently in 3rd place in the Hammer Stavanger. But look at the chase that is going on here with Ineos, with the Koenig Quickstep, with CCC, and they're now making their move to go past the Koenig Quickstep. What a stellar ride by Team CCC.
Oh, you can just see the difference now. This, the final lap of 3, and CCC still looking smooth, controlled, fast. De Koenig Quickstep almost looking around at each other saying, oh no, another one. So they have now been pushed even further back. Back to 6th now. The Belgian team in blue, and CCC, they've just made one catch and they're lining up for the next. Team Ineos, well, they really wouldn't have expected to be caught by anyone. And there it is already, the pass being made by CCC on Ineos. So the Polish team in orange, and they are just losing one rider as well. Ooh, swinging back across, picking up some slipstream and using that to get himself back onto his team.
It's Guillaume.
Smart riding.
It's Guillaume van Kersbulk with number 44. Team at the moment led by the Omnium champion of 2018. So that's a track discipline made of 4 different races. Simon Sajnok, the Polish rider with number 42. He has some great results on the track, but he's very valuable today. And the commissaires will be watching what's going on now between CCC and Ineos. And there might be a flag coming out here, also between Team Ineos and the Koenig Quickstep. But Team CCC, they're on their way to make the catch with Mitchelton Scott and go towards the podium of Hammer Stavanger. What an exciting final lap here in Norway.
Well, Jose, they are going to have to split these teams up. The commissaire is going to have to come up and do that job. He's going to hold out a flag fairly shortly, I would think, because they're all on the same side of the road. They're all tracking on the same line, and they are most definitely picking up slipstream from the team in front. So at a disadvantage now is CCC. They've made the pass, and here it comes.
There's the
commissaire. He said to the rider, get me up there. I'm just going to have a quick look.
It's too close.
There is the flag. So the Koenig Quickstep, they now have to back off. They have been passed. They must go further back or they will be penalised. Another warning, and they're disqualified.
And also, it's a big disadvantage, of course, for the team in front, like you said, CCC, because they cannot profit from the slipstream from the team in front of them. Look at the commissaire. She's now going towards Team Ineos.
And what happens is the commissaire will go in front of the Koenig Quickstep and make them back off the required distance. There'll be a reset, and they'll say, now you may go as fast as you want. If you can pass again later on, yes, you may, but you most definitely can't sit in the slipstream and then just come out and make a pass again.
Of course, this is a hugely exciting battle for 3rd place in Hammer Stavanger, but Mitchelton Scott are still in front of this, well, 3-team shot that you have on your television screen at the moment. But of course, Team Jumbo-Visma, they started 30 seconds before Team Sunweb, and they still have those 30 seconds with 6 kilometers to go. There's still 5 guys, so at this point of the race, they can sacrifice one of the guys and say, okay, you're just going full speed up until 3-4 kilometers from the line, and then we're going to lose you. And this is the battle for 3rd place, Robbie. What an exciting hammer chase here.
Mitchelton Scott, they just swung through that right-hander, that short little uphill onto the next stretch of the course. And there they are lined up. Mitchelton Scott, they go through in 3rd place. CCC, Ineos and De Koning Quickstep, they are treading on very thin ice, riding that close to the back of the team in front of them. But the big mover has been CCC from almost right at the back of the field. In fact, they started 8th of this finalist group. They were the last team to make it into this group of the hammer chase. And they have been the big movers, setting the fastest time through the second of 3 laps. So they look like they are on their way to winning the day prize, the hammer chase. But it is all about the overall Hammer Stavanger. That will be won by the first team across the line. So you won't really need to look at times to know who's won Hammer Stavanger. Jumbo-Visma come in with 4 riders. They will be the winners. They've been one of the absolute dominant teams. They were so good in the Hammer Climb. They were somewhat underwhelming in the Hammer Sprint yesterday. They lost their sprinter early in Dylan Groenewegen. He's making a very good contribution today to their Hammer Chase.
Yeah, we keep a bit. Use always the opposite lane of Sky. Yeah?
Well, just listening to Tom Steels, former 4-time Belgian champion, winner of multiple Grand Tour stages, a former fantastic sprinter, the Belgian. He's team director at De Koning Quickstep, and well, he didn't really know what to make of it all for a moment there. His team's been caught and passed by 3 teams, and they're trying as best they could to stay out of the slipstream, and it seemed they were having trouble, having to switch sides of the road constantly to stay out of that slipstream.
It seems like a big gap in the final, well, let's say 5 kilometers, because the 3.9 kilometers is, of course, for Team Jumbo-Visma. Can they still make up that gap? What do you think, Team GCC?
No, well, I think for the win, it's still 30 seconds between Jumbo-Visma and this team right here, Sunweb. That 30-second gap that was
what they started
that was
with.
at the start. That's stayed exactly. It's been a really good battle between these 2 teams, Jumbo-Visma and Sunweb. This is the battle for 3rd place. Mitchelton Scott, this is them right here, the 5 men. Alexander Edmondson, the man who dropped his chain very early on. The rest of the team sat up and waited for him. And what could have been for Mitchelton Scott? I think the way the 2 front teams have ridden, Jumbo-Visma and Sunweb, that it probably still would have been a 3rd place for Mitchelton Scott, but now they've got a real fight on their hands to maintain that 3rd, because CCC are bearing down on them, and they are the team who are fastest out on course on time.
But Team Ineos, they're not giving up. The Koning Quickstep, well, they're not far behind, but in 6th place at the moment. But look at that battle going on between Mitchelton Scott, Team CCC, with the big powerhouses, Synok, Van Kersburg, Van Hooijdonk, Serge Pauwels, of course, and who's the last guy I'm missing? Of course, Wisniewski, the Polish rider who was so good in yesterday's Hammer Sprint. But Team Ineos, they're not far behind. This is going to be such an exciting bunch sprint time trial thing hybrid on the finish line for 3rd place.
And that's what the Hammer Chase is all about. It is team against team. There is a prize for the fastest time, but it's all about team racing and getting your 4th rider across the line. Wisniewski, those stats, a brutal 5-kilometre effort. 57.2 kilometres an hour average over 5 kilometres. Average power of 410 watts. A 5th of the time he's sitting in the wheel, but he's been a real powerhouse for CCC. He's dragged them from last position in this final group, 8th position, and they're now coming up to challenge for third on what is arguably the hardest part of this course. Straight into a headwind, false flat drag, really, really tough with just over 2 kilometres to go. They'll then swing right. It goes uphill, and then they need to sprint at the end of a team's time trial. The Hammer Series is hammering everyone.
What an amazing shot there over the Hafrsfjord with all the teams on the waterside there, on the waterfront there. And Team Sunweb, they are making a move, but it seems to be a little bit too late to catch Team Jumbo-Visma. It's up to 26 seconds. The battle is on, and Team Ineos, they are going for Team CCC.
Well, it's all about timing your run and when you make your big attack to try and take that third place for these teams, because the teams first and second are out of range. But what a battle for the final podium spot. And they are starting to crack. Sunweb, Nicky's aunt, number 53. He is the man who's being distanced at the moment. He looked like the one who was starting to crack. He stayed there as long as he possibly could. These are our leaders. Jumbo-Visma, the final right-hand turn, and they are on their way to victory in the Hammer Stavanger. They still have a 20-second lead over Sunweb. They are throwing everything at them, but 1.3 kilometres to go. I can't see them being caught, but they do need to hold it together.
73, it's Pascal Eenkhoorn, followed by Dylan Groenewegen, Amund Grøndal Jansen, Jonas Vingegaard, and of course Mike Teunis, who was so incredibly strong in the Hammer Climb. What is happening here? There's teams all over the place now for third place. Still Mitchelton Scott in third position, but De Koning, Quickstep, Ineos and CCC, they are making a complete bunch there.
Well, these are the final attacks trying to get that podium position. One De Koning Quickstep rider is trying to take it upon himself to go across to Mitchelton Scott. And at the moment, I think the commissaire is not quite sure what to do, because everybody is just going as hard as they possibly can. And it's going to be a sprint battle between those teams for the final podium spot in Hammer Stavanger. Sunweb, they will ride in for second, and any moment now we will see Jumbo-Visma come into sight. They are just a matter of a few hundred metres out now.
And this is very important for this Dutch team, who have a Norwegian sponsor in Visma, which is a big IT company from Norway. So this win in Hammer Stavanger is very important for the team.
Well, Jumbo-Visma, they're on that flat final section, 200 metres to go, and they know it's now in the bag. They won the Hammer Climb. They were 6th in the Hammer Sprint. They led from the start today. They maintained the gap. Jumbo-Visma are the winners of Hammer Stavanger.
This was absolutely amazing. 55.05, so that's 4 seconds slower than Education First. Education First still in the hot seat, but we know that Team CCC are riding so fast.
Second place for Team Sunweb, 4 riders across the line, and the gap at the end, just 17 seconds, although Jumbo-Visma eased off a little bit to celebrate the win in Hammer Stavanger. This is all about the final podium place in Hammer Stavanger. The teams battling out. Mitchelton Scott are the ones in front. It is then Ineos, CCC starting to fade now a little bit. De Koning Quickstep trying to get back over the top of them. They're on the final drag up towards the finish. Mitchelton Scott, they're now being tracked by Ineos. They are throwing everything, including the kitchen sink.
This is such an exciting... We've got 500 metres to go. We are in the finish straight. It seems like Ineos are fading just a little bit. And Mitchelton Scott, still 5 guys are holding their speed to go for that third position. They had a horrific start to the team time trial with that mechanical by Alex Edmondson, but it looks like they're bringing it home for third place.
Well, Mitchelton Scott, they are spread all across the road. Everybody sprinting now to hold off. They've held on for third place. Mitchelton Scott, they just stay in front of Ineos, are now across with 4. CCC, they will come in 5th. De Koning Quickstep in 6th. And just separated by seconds and all, well, intermingled amongst each other as well. What an incredible finish. Those teams fighting it out for third place. No doubt about our winners. Jumbo-Visma have won Hammer Stavanger. Sunweb, they tried, they gave it everything they had. They were held off through most of the Hammer chase, made inroads in the final couple of kilometres. It was good enough for second place. at the end of Hammer Stavanger. Mitchelton Scott, the defending champions from last year. They round out the top 3. But what an incredible finish. Ineos coming in for 4th. CCC, well, they came from the clouds, started in 8th. And we will find out very shortly. And I think, well, I'm absolutely sure that CCC have done enough to set the fastest time.
I think so,
too. So they will win the Hammer Chase on time.
Let's wait
they
officially.
will win the day prize. But it's this team here, and that's now gone from a grimace to a grin for Pascal Eenkorn. Dylan Groenewegen, well, he's used to punching the air in victory. Now he celebrates with the teammates. Vinegaard, also along with Mike Turnison, and it's high fives all round in the car. Frans Maassen, the team driver, Marta Van Unts. It's a part-time job when he's not racing.
And of course, the 5th guy on the Jumbo-Visma team is a Norwegian guy, Amund Grøndal Jansen, so he will be happy to do this in front of his home crowd. What a fantastic effort by especially Alex Edmondson. He's there in this group. They held off the chase here by Ineos, CCC and the Koning Quickstep. And tell us, Robbie, who has won the Hammer Chase?
Well, as we see Border Hansgrohe come in and take 7th in the Hammer Stavanger, we do have confirmation of the Hammer Chase, so the time amongst all 16 teams, and it's CCC who have been the fastest around this 48.9 kilometre course. They finished in 53 minutes and 43 seconds, 19 seconds ahead of Team Ineos. Team Sunweb 3rd fastest, Education 1st, were 4th.
Confusing.
And Team Jumbo-Visma, well, their 5th fastest time overall was good enough to win them Hammer Stavanger, because it is all about crossing the line first on the road, and that is exactly what Jumbo-Visma did.
Yeah, they won the Hammer Climb. They were 6th in the Hammer Sprint, and they, well, were first across the line here. And that's all you need to do to win Hammer Stavanger. What a valiant effort by Team Jumbo-Visma. Team Sunweb in 2nd place. Mitchelton Scott were in 3rd place. And, well, this was something else, Robbie. What a fantastic thing to watch. I loved each and every minute of it. Not only the finalists, but also the runners-up. We have seen 2 incredible Hammer chases.
Oh, the Hammer Series is absolutely revolutionary. It has changed cycling. It is so exciting to watch. There is something going on in every single lap, in every discipline across the weekend. And there is the final result of Hammer Stavanger, the big prize for Team Jumbo-Visma. And it's a matter of what could have been for Team Sunweb, because the top 4 teams, as they took off for the Hammer Chase, well, they were all equal after the Hammer Climb and the Hammer Sprint. And it was a type of count-back that separated them and saw Jumbo-Visma roll away first. And they defended that over Sunweb. Mitchelton Scott taking 3rd. What a fascinating race. And here is that result of the chase. So this is the day prize. There is a prize for the winner of the chase, and that is CCC, 53 minutes and 43 seconds for 49 kilometres. That is moving. The Polish team in orange, Ineos, was 2nd fastest. Team Sunweb, 3rd in the chase, 2nd overall. And Jumbo-Visma, 5th fastest in the Hammer Chase. But crossing the line first, defending that leading position, they win the Hammer Stavanger. And with that, puts them in the lead of the Hammer Series. In just under 2 weeks' time, we will be hammering yet again, this time in Limburg in Holland. And the series will wrap up at the end of the year in October with the Hammer Hong Kong. So let's recap what was just an incredible Hammer Chase. Jumbo-Visma, 30 seconds advantage they took into the start of the Hammer Chase. And Mitchelton Scott, they were early favourites to be able to come back and overhaul the teams in front of them, and then this happened. Alexander Edmundson, well, the chain came off and jammed, and it was stuck between the chain ring and the frame. The mechanic had to come out and get his hands dirty, reef it out from in between, and immediately the team was told to wait for Alexander Edmundson. It's too early to push on with just 4. They did that. They were overtaken almost immediately by De Koning Quickstep. But oblivious to all of that was Jumbo-Visma. Dylan Groenewegen, the incredibly fast sprinter, well, he turned his hand to teams time trialling in the Hammer Chase. This is him on the front, leading his team through after the second of 3 laps. And behind them, well, it was carnage out on course. De Koning Quickstep, they were then eventually passed by Mitchelton Scott, and setting the fastest intermediate time after the second lap was CCC. Mitchelton Scott, they steadied the ship. They then managed to make the pass on De Koning Quickstep, put themselves back into 3rd position. And what a ding-dong battle it was all the way into the finish, because CCC were moving their way through the field. They also made their way past De Koning Quickstep, who were also passed by Team Ineos. Ineos in turn were passed by CCC. And these teams were fighting it out, just punch and counter punch all the way through to the end of the Hammer Chase. Mitchelton Scott, they had a very slender advantage through the final 2 kilometres. The 3 teams behind them, Ineos, CCC and De Koning Quickstep, well, they were almost taking each other out, trying to find a run to the line, but no doubt about the winners. Jumbo-Visma punching the air, they win the Hammer Stavanger. They were pursued and pushed all the way by the men in red from Sunweb. They had to settle for 2nd place overall. And there it was, the fight for 3rd. Mitchelton Scott still with 5 riders. Ineos trying to track them down in the final metres. But Mitchelton Scott, the winners of Hammer Stavanger last year and winners of the Hammer Series, did enough to hang in for 3rd. Ineos in 4th, CCC, and then De Koning Quickstep in 6th. CCC also setting the fastest time on the day and winning themselves that title of Hammer Chase champions here at Hammer Stavanger. But it is all about the overall. And finishing it off in style was Jumbo-Visma, celebrating as a team, racing all weekend as a team, and that is what the Hammer Series is all about. It is true team racing. You cannot rely on one individual to be brilliant. You've got to be consistent. You've got to back each other up. And they were tactically very good across the weekend, Jumbo-Visma, even though they really were missing the presence yesterday in the front group in the Hammer Sprint of Dylan Groenewegen. They managed to do just enough to start first and hang on. Well, it is all about hammering, and CCC, they did exactly that. One of the big powerhouses of that team, Lukas Wisniewski, the big Pole, he scored a whole heap of points yesterday in the Hammer Sprint. He was in that 2-up breakaway with Michal Govash, the man from Ineos, and it was those 2 teams going head-to-head in the Hammer Chase. They were 1st and 2nd on time. So CCC proving their team's time trial credentials, winning the Hammer Chase on time. But they never got within sight on the road of Jumbo-Visma. And they'll be very, very proudly lifting the trophy. And as is become tradition here in the Hammer Series, nailing the Hammer emblem into the ground. What an incredibly fast team's time trial, this Hammer Chase. The 49 kilometres ridden in just over 53 minutes for CCC, just 19 seconds faster than Team Ineos. Jumbo-Visma, 5th fastest on the day. But with the advantage they had, well, that was enough. Stavanger, the venue of the first round of the Hammer Series in 2019. And We really do hope you join us again in just under 2 weeks for Hammer Limburg, the Hammer Climb, Hammer Sprint, and another, what I'm sure is going to be a fascinating Hammer Chase. Jumbo-Visma leading the series, undoubtedly. We've had one round of the 3, and there it is, Hammer Limburg, June 7, 8 and 9, and centred around the Tom Dumoulin Bike Park in Limburg. A fantastic venue that is. Really encouraging the grassroots of cycling as well, as they do here in Stavanger. And this is the Hammer Series leaderboard after the first event of 2019. And that leaderboard is exactly the same as the results of Hammer Stavanger. Team Jumbo-Visma on top. The Dutchman with 100 points, Team Sunweb on 81. Mitchelton Scott will be looking to defend their Hammer Series win of 2018. They're still in touch. Ineos, CCC and De Koning Quickstep 4, 5 and 6. Bora Hansgrohe, Lotto Soudal Education First, and Rival Readiness really have some work to do to lift themselves up in the standings. But after one round, all is not lost. Looking down on the harbour in Stavanger, that's where the Hammer Sprint took place yesterday. All is calm there now after the excitement of yesterday's Hammer Sprint. It was great to see the locals of Stavanger out here to witness the winning team, Jumbo-Visma. Amon Grundal Jansen, Dylan Groenewegen, Pascal Eenkhoorn, Jonas Vingegaard, Mike Turnesen and Maarten Wijnands. They were the 6 men representing Jumbo-Visma. 5 riders participate each day. And Maarten Wijnands, well, he made himself useful today as well. Not riding in the Hammer Chase, driving the team car, leaving the team director Frans Maassen hands-free to direct the team to victory in Hammer Stavanger. Join us again for Hammer Limburg. We'll see you then. That's an affirmative. Ghost Rider.
På lagtempoen gjennom folkemassene her sånn, og da skal vi samle oss til en skikkelig applaus for Serge Powell, Simon Steinhock, Nathan van Hooydonk, Jon van Keesbroek, Lukas Wisniewski, CCC Team!